These companies support the Thom Hartmann program. They are HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit delivery service. More info at HelloFresh.com, code TOM. The Hidden History of Big Brother in America, How the Death of Privacy and the Rise of Surveillance Threaten Us and Our Democracy by Thom Hartmann. More information at all book outlets. Wild Alaskan Company, 100% sustainable wild-caught seafood delivered right to your door. More info at wildalaskancompany.com/Tom. Cozy Earth, better sleep, better you. More info at cozyearth.com, promo code TOM. The latest views and opinions from U.S. politics and other fascinating subjects too, including cutting-edge science reports at hartmannreport.com. And Dinovite, a whole food supplement for your pet's immune system. More info at dinovite.com.
It is, I promise, the last week of the Free Speech TV fundraiser. This last week is, things have been going kind of slow. We've talked about this before. I realize there's enormous competition for nonprofit dollars out there. Free Speech TV has not hit their goals. In fact, they're in the neighborhood of 25% short of their goals, and thus one more last week, one for this fourth week. It's tough, but hey, we've got to pay the bills. We've got to make sure that the organization continues on a sound footing, that the electrons continue to bounce off the satellites and come to you. So, step by step. And for this end of drive, the end of the pledge drive, there's actually a challenge pledge that Sandy, frontline funder Sandy in New Mexico, has made. Sandy says, well, this is what the note says. In memory of his late partner, Storm Diana Townsend, frontline funder Sandy in New Mexico is inviting you to make a new donation to help us reach our final goal and unlock an extra $10,000. This is the note from the good folks at Free Speech TV. Sandy describes Storm as a pro-union socialist, but her true passion was for indigenous communities. Storm worked with Navajo artists throughout her career as a sculptor. This week, let's honor Storm and all of our community members, past and present, who continue to make this kind of storytelling possible, like on, this network. Every new gift made before Friday will go toward unlocking that $10,000 challenge. So if we can hit, if you and I and the other programs here on this network, if we can hit this $10,000 goal, then we will unlock another $10,000. If we can hit our goal for this. For the end of this pledge drive, we can unlock another $10,000 that will go to, helping make Free Speech TV whole, helping fill the budget hole that they're facing right now. So big challenge, lot to do. Last opportunity this week, these next 5 days, today and the next 4 days, to participate in Free Speech TV, to really and truly step up and say, yes, I'm going to be part of this thing. There are a bunch of premiums that Free Speech TV is offering. They're pretty much the same as we've been talking about all week, but I'll run through them real quickly for you. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV Clear sticker, like a Kling window sticker, or a Free Speech TV bumper sticker. Or with a $20 gift, the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV Seed Bomb. Celebrate Earth Day every day. This is a really cool seed bomb. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hat or the Free Speech TV mug. With a $100 gift, Free Speech TV will plant a tree. With a $120 gift, it's the one and only way to get your very own autographed copy of the hidden history of Big Brother in America. And my book on privacy and what's going on and how bad it could get and where we're going and all that kind of thing. Or you can have the Free Speech TV Solidarity t-shirt with that $120 gift. With a $240 gift, you have two choices. One is the Free Speech TV meet and greet, the virtual meet and greet that we do on Zoom, and the other is the Free Speech TV banned book box. And this is particularly cool. And by the way, you can also make a commitment of $20 a month for a year to get the banned book box. So we're still trying, as I mentioned, last Friday, we're still trying to build this foundation of regular monthly contributors, small $5, $10, $20 monthly contributors to support this network. This is how structures always work. You've got to build the foundation first, and this is the foundation for us. And the banned book box includes The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, a brilliant novel, Mouse by Art Spiegelman, which is the illustrated story that for reasons that I still can't understand, that Republicans want to ban from our public schools. It's a story about what life was like under the Nazis in Germany in the 1930s. And the third book that you get with this $240 gift is Beyond Magenta, Transgender Teens Speak Out by Susan Cooklin. And so, three marvelous books that Republicans don't want you to read. Literally. I mean, these are all books that have been banned in various states. So that's with a $240 gift. And of course, with a $1,000 gift, come here to Portland and we can hang out together. I'll take you to lunch. You can spend an hour in the studio, watch the last hour of our program, and then we'll walk down the street to a restaurant and have a nice lunch together. And this is all assuming that kind of COVID has passed, right? Or they come up with a super shot or something like that. I think we're going to get there. I really do. I realize that there's probably one more wave right now coming from this Omicron D2 variant, but I think we're going to get there. So your $1,000 gifts are appreciated now, even if we can't host you right at this moment. The bottom line, though, is we need to unlock that $10,000 matching pledge, and we also need to hit our goals. It's just that simple. We got to pay the bills. And, if we want to keep this network on the air. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution to Free Speech TV, or reaffirm your contribution if you've made contributions in the past and you'd like to add a little bit to it. This is the Thom Hartmann Program. Well, a really big program today for you. It's for you. Sorry about that. Forgot to put the mic on. It always helps. A lot going on today, and actually a mind-boggling amount of stuff I want to get into today. In the first hour, is America facing the doom loop of democracy? Some democracies fall apart because of invasion by a neighbor or terrorism or a natural disaster, but most are actually taken down by their own greedy oligarchs internally. I'll tell you about that in a moment. Also, in this first hour, the unthinkable is happening as scientists are shocked by polar temperatures soaring 90 degrees above normal. I'll tell you about that. And Finland confronts, or at least a Finnish citizen confronts America for its role in Putin's invasion. It's a fascinating story. In our second hour, I want to dig into this story about the Hague bringing Vladimir Putin to account for his war crimes. The International Criminal Court, as we speak, is in Ukraine gathering proof of war crimes. But Gordon Brown is in the UK is calling for a Nuremberg-style trial. And I'll tell you about all the details on that and how it works. Also in our second hour, Republicans have revealed that they're coming for birth control next. And this is from a senior Republican senator, Marsha Blackburn, on the Judiciary Committee, criticizing Judge Jackson, who is before the committee this week for her confirmation hearings, criticizing her for saying that the 1965 Griswold decision, which legalized married couples having birth control, including condoms, in their own home, Marsha Blackburn saying that decision was wrongly decided, and criticizing the Judge Jackson for saying Yes, I also think that married couples should be able to have birth control in their own home. I'll give you the details on that in our second hour. In our third hour, it's now clear that Trump's team all conspired to encourage the actual attack on the Capitol, and some just extraordinary evidence coming out that Rolling Stone has laid out. I'll share that with you in the third hour. And also, Putin's war in Europe, in Ukraine, is causing Europe to convert to electric cars faster. Can America do the same, please? We'll talk about that. It's also some fascinating stuff. So a lot of topics. No guests today. It's you and me, and we can discuss every single one of these issues. I want to start out with this doom loop of democracies, though. This is, this is more history and background, but it's really vitally important stuff that most Americans have no idea about, that is literally happening right in front of us as we're speaking. And this is the main way that democracies get taken down. This is how democracies are destroyed, and it's done by something that we don't really have a word for right now. I mean, we do have the word, but we haven't really used it in 150 years or so. Back during the founding generation in the 1700s, this was called faction. And a faction is a group that not only has its own interest. I mean, today we talk about special interest groups. Arguably they're factions. But the specific meaning of the word faction in the 18th century was a group whose interests are opposed, are different from, are in opposition to the interests of the vast majority of the public or the nation itself. Today, you might want to call them, traitors? Or at least traitors to democracy? And, it was a faction of oligarchs led by Vladimir Putin back in 99, 2000 that took over Russia after Russia adopted Milton Friedman's neoliberal policies of privatization, low taxes, and deregulation, which led straight to his terrible decisions in Ukraine. So where does this start? It always starts, with a faction of wealthy people corrupting politics in country after country over centuries, literally over centuries. Faction always leads to this doom loop of democracy. Aristotle warned about it. Bernie Sanders warns about it. FDR called the faction of his day the economic royalists. Here's how the doom loop goes. Number one, just to understand, government, in order to protect itself and protect the people that it represents, representative government does two things that prevent the doom loop from happening, the doom loop of faction. The first is they regulate taxes on the very, very rich and corporations so that you don't have an aristocracy, an oligarchy emerge, so that you don't have an eruption of billionaires. Before Ronald Reagan, there wasn't a single billionaire in America. Now we've got, 700 of them? And they're getting very politically active, and they can wipe out pretty much anybody's efforts and, to do anything. So number one, governments keep taxes high to prevent, an aristocracy from emerging in a nation. And number two, they regulate money in politics so that the government itself can't be corrupted. So the second step in the doom loop is that the corporations and individuals who basically own and control the marketplace decide that they're going to throw off the shackles of government. So they get together and pour money into politics, enough to buy all the politicians and judges that they need. Then their wholly owned politicians and judges go out and weaken, lower taxes on themselves and weaken the laws that protect the democracy from the influence of big money. And then, of course, what happens is that as the country spirals down into aristocracy and oligarchy, the middle class gets wiped out, the rich get massively richer, and they recycle part of that new money back to the politicians who made them that way, so that those politicians and judges will keep them that way. We're seeing this on the Supreme Court. You're seeing this writ large in the Senate. You see it across the Republican Party, and even a few Democrats in the House of Representatives. And by the way, this analysis that I just laid out to you, this is not some radical position from a left-wing talk show host. This is an analysis. Well, first of all, President Jimmy Carter explained this to me on the radio, on this show 7 years ago, when he said that, here, I've got the quote from him. Let me find it for you. He said it violates the essence, we were talking about Citizens United. He says it violates the essence of what made America a great country in its political system. Now it's just an oligarchy with unlimited political bribery being the essence of getting the nominations for president or to elect the president. So now we've seen a complete subversion of our political system as a payoff to major contributors who want and expect and sometimes get favors for themselves after the election's over. So that was Jimmy Carter, but you know, we can go way, way back before Jimmy Carter. And this is something that was warned, we were warned about by, James Madison is probably the most famous Federalist number 10. I'll get to that in a second. Well, in fact, in Federalist number 10, what Madison, I defined the term. He said, by a faction, I understand a number of citizens who are united and actuated by some common impulse of passion or of interest, adverse, a word we don't hear much these days, but it means opposed, adverse to the rights of other citizens or to the permanent and aggregate interests of the community. So that was in 1787 that was published, in number 10, the Federalist number 10, that Madison came out and said that. And he said that to secure the public good and private rights against the danger of such a faction. He was talking about why they wrote the Constitution. And at the same time, to preserve the spirit in the form of popular government is then the great object to which our inquiries are directed. But it really started, you know, it was published, this was published by Lord Bolingbroke the year that James Madison was born. Lord Bolingbroke died in 1751. Madison was born in 1752, and that was the year that Bolingbroke's book was published. And he just laid it out. He said a party, as I take it, is a set of men connected together with the same opinion with respect to public concerns. But when it proceeds further and influences men's conduct in any considerable degree, it becomes faction. So what are the factions? Well, Bolingbroke, again, this is 1751, a British philosopher. He says, and politician. He says, in all such cases, there are reasons and motive. By revealed reasons, I mean a set of plausible doctrines which may be called the creed of the party. But the reserved motive belongs to faction only, and it is the thirst of power. This was the warning in 1751. Beware of the thirst of power. Bolingbroke wasn't the only one. As I mentioned, James Madison wrote about it in Federalist 10. Even David Hume, who was a conservative historian. He wrote The History of England, one of the most famous books in all of history, or all of Western history, certainly all of British history. But in an essay that he wrote in 1741 titled Of Parties in General, again, before the founders were born, he wrote, as much as legislators and founders of states ought to be honored and respected among men, as much ought the founders of sects and factions to be detested and hated, because the influence of faction is directly contrary to that of laws. Now, what did he mean by contrary to that of laws? Here's what he said in the next paragraph. This is David Hume, 1741. Factions subvert government, render laws impotent, and beget the fiercest animosities among men of the same nation who ought to give mutual assistance and protection to each other. So here we are. We have factions, in other words, wealthy, right-wing billionaires and giant corporations that have taken over the Republican Party and now are openly funding Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. Openly. Politico did a great story on this. There's a link to it in my article today over at HartmannReport.com. Openly funding these guys, bragging about it, proud of it. And apparently Manchin and Sinema are proud of the fact that they now have billionaires pouring money into their campaign coffers. And here we go, right? We're off to the races. How rapidly can America decline? We have reached the point now where legislation, 40 years ago, before Reagan, A, there were no billionaires, and B, Congress was routinely passing legislation that everybody loved. Look at the look at Medicare, 1965. You know, the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, all of this legislation was passed because the majority of people want it. Now, today, you've got legislation that the majority of people desperately want Congress to pass. The majority of people in America very much want, for example, free education, free college education or trade schools, low-cost health care or free health care, as it were, among other things. But they're not happening, and they're not happening because of faction. This is something we really have to challenge.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And you know what raised up that faction most powerfully? The U.S. Supreme Court with their Citizens United decision. That was the beginning of the end. And welcome back. Rachel in Prague in the Czech Republic. Hey, Rachel, what's on your mind today?
Oh, hi. Wow, that was quick. Hi, just saying hello from Prague. I'm safe. And my ability to say that in Czech is escaping me. It is not an easy language. But I actually just wanted to call in and say a few words about Jimmy Hill, the American who was killed last week in a missile strike at Chernihiv in the northeast of Ukraine. I think he's gotten a little attention in the press, but not a whole lot so far.
Go for it.
I mean, I didn't know him super well. We met maybe a handful of times in professional social environments. And, well, I'll put it mildly, he marched to a beat of his own drum in a major way. But, you know, I never doubted his sincerity and just drive to do good in the world.
Why was this American living in Ukraine?
Well, actually, I was actually going to say, he'd been there for several years, primarily teaching and kind of doing as like guest lecturing in different universities.
Did he have a Ukrainian partner? Was that part of this?
Actually, that was the thing. I didn't realize he'd left for a while. During the pandemic, I lost track of a lot of people. But yeah, his partner has I don't know. I think she's still alive. MS, and he came back this winter, I believe, to help her, and they went to a specialized clinic for that in Chernihiv city. At first, I was assuming that it was the hospital itself that was bombed, because that's happened a lot. But I guess it was actually him and other people going out on a supply run that were just shelled down, basically. Pretty surreal.
Was he one of the people who was standing in that bread line, the 8 people who were killed?
I think so. Yeah. I again, putting 2 and 2 together is all a little surreal. Again, we were never super close, but from what I know about him and, you know, his politics and just general ethos and philosophy of life, I thought, I wouldn't be surprised if he'd listened to your show at times in the past. So I figured I would share that with you. I don't know. I guess for me, this is just going to be the first of many people I'm going to be mourning. But I
suspect.
I guess also.
You're living in the Czech Republic? You're in Prague right now.
I am at the moment,
Rachel.
Yes.
How are the Czech people dealing with this?
I mean, I was staying with my friend in a suburb until today, really, and I felt like I was not connecting with Ukrainians at all, and I've just relocated for a few days, and people are speaking Russian and Ukrainian all around me now. How are people dealing with it for now? Well, I mean...
Are they worried that Russia might come after the Czech Republic next?
Well, they'll have to get through Poland, please. Come on.
I know.
I'd say no. People are level-headed in their own way, but it's not about that. It's more just about the anxiety over stressed resources, basically, and the fear is of right-wing. Well, the fear of right-wing populists taking advantage of that.
Yeah, that's a problem all over the world.
Yeah.
Rachel, thank you for the call.
Taking my call.
Yeah, it's great talking with you. Thank you very much. It's 22 minutes past the hour. We'll be back. I want to get into this, the unthinkable polar temperatures in Finland and Putin and Poland and single-payer health care. We'll cover all that in the next 5 minutes, and then I'll pick up your phone calls. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. So how do you know which party has the most crooks in it? You know, the Republicans are always saying, oh, those Democrats are soft on crime and, you know, a lot of murders in Democrat-run cities. Well, for the record, first off, red states and red counties have a higher per capita murder rates than do blue states and blue counties. This is just a fact. But secondly, let's look at some of the administrations. I mean, the Obama administration had no criminal indictments. The Jimmy Carter administration had 1. The Bill Clinton administration had 2. But what about the Republican administrations? It was 16 for George W. Bush. It was 26 criminal indictments for Ronald Reagan. Richard Nixon's administration had 76 criminal indictments. And of course, the full-time professional rapist and grifter, Donald Trump, he had 215 criminal indictments. So who's really soft on crime? We got a video about it over at ThomHartmann.com. You can check it out. Okay, welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. A couple of things I want to point out to you. Number one, have you been catching these news reports from Poland? I mean, every television network seems to have a reporter in Poland, and they're talking about the refugees who are coming in from Ukraine. And I've heard this now at least 4 times from several different networks, where the reporter says, and they come in here, and the Czech officials meet them, and they give them a legal pass for the next 18 months to stay in the country, and they give them a social security number so they can get health care. It's that simple. You get a social security number, you've got health care. Poland has Medicare for all, and we don't? Seriously? Okay, number one, just keep an eye out on that. You'll hear this. Number 2, scientists expressed shock and alarm this weekend amid extremely high temperatures on both poles. Now, this should never happen, right? The North Pole right now is going into summer. The South Pole right now is going into winter. They're completely different seasons. And yet, the temperatures in the South Pole right now are 90 degrees higher than they should be. And the temperatures in the North Pole right now are 50 degrees higher than they should be. The scientists thought they had it figured out what would happen when we hit, the levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that we have right now, and they're just back to the drawing board. I mean, this is Stefano De Battista, an Antarctic climatologist, tweeted that this is unthinkable. It's impossible. He said Antarctic climatology has been rewritten. Jonathan Wiley, a researcher in France, said this is when temperatures should be falling since the summer solstice in December. He said this is a Pacific Northwest 2021 heat wave kind of event. This is what happened here in Portland when we have 116-degree temperatures for 3 days. Walt Meir of the National Snow and Ice Data Center in Boulder says you don't see the North Poles and South Poles both melting at the same time because they're opposite seasons. This should not be happening. And of course, the poles define the jet stream, the weather, the circular weather pattern that separates the poles from the mid-latitudes, both the north and south. They define this, and the jet stream defines all our weather patterns. So get ready for really crazy weather coming. I got to tell you about this note from Finland. It's rather sobering. It's just a quick update, and then I'll pick up your phone calls on the other side of this break. Stick around. We'll be right back. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, the true people's media.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
So what are your thoughts on how we can best save American democracy? Where do we begin? What say you? It is, I promise, the last week of the Free Speech TV fundraiser. This last week is, things have been going kind of slow. We've talked about this before. I realize there's enormous competition for nonprofit dollars out there. Free Speech TV has not hit their goals. In fact, they're in the neighborhood of 25% short of their goals, and thus one more last week, one for this fourth week. It's tough, but hey, we've got to pay the bills. We've got to make sure that the organization continues on a sound footing, that the electrons continue to bounce off the satellites and come to you. So, step by step. And for this end of drive, the end of the pledge drive, there's actually a challenge pledge that Sandy, frontline funder Sandy in New Mexico, has made. Sandy says, well, this is what the note says. In memory of his late partner, Storm Diana Townsend, frontline funder Sandy in New Mexico is inviting you to make a new donation to help us reach our final goal and unlock an extra $10,000. This is the note from the good folks at Free Speech TV. Sandy describes Storm as a pro-union socialist, but her true passion was for indigenous communities. Storm worked with Navajo artists throughout her career as a sculptor. This week, let's honor Storm and all of our community members, past and present, who continue to make this kind of storytelling possible, like on, this network. Every new gift made before Friday will go toward unlocking that $10,000 challenge. So if we can hit, if you and I and the other programs here on this network, if we can hit this $10,000 goal, then we will unlock another $10,000. If we can hit our goal for this, for the end of this pledge drive, we can unlock another $10,000 that will go to helping make Free Speech TV whole, helping fill the budget hole that they're facing right now. So big challenge, lot to do. Last opportunity this week, these next 5 days, today and the next 4 days, to participate in Free Speech TV, to really and truly step up and say, yes, I'm going to be part of this thing. There are a bunch of premiums that Free Speech TV is offering. They're pretty much the same as we've been talking about all week, but I'll run through them real quickly for you. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV clear sticker, like a cling window sticker, or a Free Speech TV bumper sticker. Or with a $20 gift, the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV Seed Bomb. Celebrate Earth Day every day. This is a really cool seed bomb. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hat or the Free Speech TV mug. With a $100 gift, Free Speech TV will plant a tree. With a $120 gift, it's the one and only way to get your very own autographed copy of the hidden history of Big Brother in America, and my book on privacy and what's going on and how bad it could get and where we're going and all that kind of thing. Or you can have the Free Speech TV Solidarity T-shirt with that $120 gift. With a $240 gift, you have two choices. One is the Free Speech TV meet and greet, the virtual meet and greet that we do on Zoom, and the other is the Free Speech TV banned book box. And this is particularly cool. And by the way, you can also make a commitment of $20 a month for a year to get the banned book box. So we're still trying, as I mentioned, last Friday, we're still trying to build this foundation of regular monthly contributors, small $5, $10, $20 monthly contributors to support this network. This is how structures always work. You've got to build the foundation first, and this is the foundation for us. And the banned book box includes The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, a brilliant novel, Mouse by Art Spiegelman, which is the illustrated story that for reasons that I still can't understand, that Republicans want to ban from our public schools. It's a story about what life was like under the Nazis in Germany in the 1930s. And the third book that you get with this $240 gift is Beyond Magenta, Transgender Teens Speak Out by Susan Cooklin. And so, three marvelous books that Republicans don't want you to read. Literally. I mean, these are all books that have been banned in various states. So that's with a $240 gift. And of course, with a $1,000 gift, come here to Portland and we can hang out together. I'll take you to lunch. You can spend an hour in the studio, watch the last hour of our program, and then we'll walk down the street to a restaurant and have a nice lunch together. And this is all assuming that kind of COVID has passed, right? Or they come up with a super shot, or something like that. I think we're going to get there. I really do. I realize that there's probably one more wave right now coming from this Omicron D2 variant, but I think we're going to get there. So your $1,000 gifts are appreciated now, even if we can't host you right at this moment. The bottom line, though, is we need to unlock that $10,000 matching pledge, and we also need to hit our goals. It's just that simple. We got to pay the bills, and if we want to keep this network on the air. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution to Free Speech TV, or reaffirm your contribution if you've made contributions in the past and you'd like to add a little bit to it. This is the time. Please call now. Thank you. Do it. Our 1 hour free podcast recaps our show, and it's available wherever fine podcasts are found. And we have the full 3 hour podcast available over at thomhartmann.com if you want to really support our program. And welcome back. Okay, one last thing here, and then picking up your phone calls. Your thoughts also on what's going on with Russia and Putin. How do you think this thing is going to play out? I mean, again, the whole issue of oligarchy in the United States, I think, ties into the whole issue of oligarchy in Russia. And in some ways, and in fact, I'm going to get into this in more detail in the third hour. In some ways, this tragedy in Ukraine, this mass death, this horrific genocidal crime, may be one of the things that provokes democracies around the world to reconsider going down the road that Russia went down in between 1994 and 1999, when the United States sent Milton Friedman over there, and the Clinton administration and then the Bush administration early on in the 2000s strongly encouraged Russia to adopt neoliberalism, Reaganism, trickle-down economics, supply-side economics, to privatize government functions right across the board, put everything in the hands of oligarchs, which is now why, the oligarchs are supplying the military, and of course they're skimming so much off the top it doesn't work. But, how is this going to play out? How might this change the consequences for Russia? The form of government. I mean, is it possible that Russia could see something like the Maidan revolution in Ukraine, where people just rise up and say no? The Orange Revolution, there are news reports out right now that the number one thing that Putin fears is a so-called color revolution within Russia. And he's doing everything he can to clamp down and stop that. And, we get reports that people in Russia are standing up and they are speaking out. They do want to be heard and all this, but at the same time, again, I would remind you how many years it took Americans to figure out that we'd been lied into the Vietnam War, how many years it took for Americans to figure out that we'd been lied into the Iraq War, and that both were basically the same kinds of massive, awful destruction and death and arguably genocide that we're seeing right now happening in Ukraine. But this was interesting. Josh Marshall's publication is Talking Points Memo, and over on TPM, a Finnish member of TPM really took the United States to task. Dardigan writes about it over at Daily Kos, but you can go to the source, Talking Points Memo. He writes that this is what this Finnish person was saying, and Josh Marshall was highlighting. He was talking about Russia's goal. Why, for example, why are we seeing Russian trolls in American social media? Why was Russia supporting Donald Trump? And he says, you had to be weakened, and Britain manipulated with Brexit in order to facilitate invasions of Ukraine, Belarusia, and a list of other neighboring pieces of land on Putin's future menu. He said, so as a KGB officer, you would plan that they would come from exactly the opposite direction where they were expected. They professionally built and operate. Now, this is, keep in mind, this is a European observer of America writing about what Russia did, and I think it's spot on. Listen to this carefully. He's talking about, the Russian intelligence services. They professionally built an operational web among the rural, redneck, cowboys, evangelical Christians, the NRA, the most Republican of all Republicans, among your law enforcement, some military people, and big business. Their long dive was planned before the start of the Kremlin's operation. Had Trump succeeded to stay in power, he writes, the march of Putin to various targets in Eastern Europe would have been more like an easy summer parade. NATO would be partially paralyzed by his loyal friends in the White House, who would likely have gotten their personal share of the profits. And then he notes that, by the way, America, the world is still noticing that you have not held Donald Trump to account for reaching out to Russia for help in getting himself elected. He says, so if you really want to do something for Ukraine, please do your own homework. Show to both your home audience and to the rest of the world that the western flank of Putin's army, this would be Trump and the Republicans who are, the Trump humper Republicans, is kept accountable. Just effing enforce your old existing laws to ultra-rich, influential white dudes as well. So a guy in Finland looking at America goes, hey, faction has taken over your country, a faction aligned with Vladimir Putin. It's amazing. Okay, picking up your phone calls here, Eric in West Chicago. Hey, Eric, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, how you doing today?
Good. What's up?
I heard about the influencers in our Congress, and looking at it in Congress having a 20% approval rating, I just feel like it doesn't matter to them that they have such a low approval rating, and wondering how do we fix this? How do we get better? I mean,
it doesn't matter to them because they can buy elections essentially. And these politicians know that if one of their billionaire patrons or a giant corporation comes in and basically carpet bombs the district with advertising talking about how wonderful this person is, odds are they'll win the election. And this carpet bombing, this massive inflow of cash into political campaigns and on behalf of political campaigns, these so-called independent groups, this has to stop. We outlawed this in the United States in the 70s after the Nixon bribery scandals, and then the Supreme Court overturned that in 1976 and 78. And then we passed some more, weaker but still substantial laws to limit the power of money in politics. And the Supreme Court overturned those in 2010. I mean, they literally, the Citizens United decision overturned more than 100 laws, both federal and state, all across the nation, that regulated money in politics. So what we have right now, Eric, is we've got oligarchs running the show, and those oligarchs are only picking and only funding politicians who support the oligarchy. And that, we've got to do something about that. We've got to overturn Citizens United, and we've got to get there. We've got to get there. Eric, thank you for the call. Paul in Woodinville, Washington. Hey, Paul, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, Tom. So it was interesting that you were reading, of course, Federalist 10 and Madison mentioning factions. And then I really liked the part that you were reading from David Hume. It said that factions will subvert government. And that coming from David Hume was an empiricist.
Oh, I know.
He didn't believe in causation philosophically, but he did there. He made that clear connection that factions will subvert government. And our factions are rewriting our Constitution de facto with their test cases in the Supreme Court. And these are agendas that they set up. They've stacked the courts. We've allowed that to happen. They've stacked the courts. And for not only Citizens United was a big test case, which, by the way, the court totally derailed by obfuscating and changing the subject in oral arguments. And Elena Kagan was the Solicitor General who defended. I was just reading this oral argument, and it started with, I think, Scalia, who, and it all got down to, so can we outlaw books? Can we ban books? Mm-hmm. Which is fine because that's what the right wing wants to do now is ban books. But that it all hit, and actually the lawyers, I think it's Olson was the guy who was for Citizens United, was saying that we're not even asking for that. He said, but the court said, oh, no. So what the court does is they plow the field, they blow the whole oral arguments wide open, and then they decide how narrowly they want to rule it in order to accomplish their agenda. The other two cases that were faction agendas were the gun cases in 2008, Heller v. D.C., which they needed a precedent so that they could do McDonald versus Chicago in 2010.
And Heller.
And strip states of their rights to regulate guns.
Right.
That's what they did.
Yep. No,
Because
absolutely.
if you look at
It's not like we weren't warned, Paul. These people have been talking about doing this stuff since the 60s.
They've been talking about it before that, probably.
Well,
but
since the 20s, yeah.
This is exactly it. And this is why, Tom, I know, and everybody hates, why I harp on this. See, the factions have gathered enough mass and momentum at this point. We cannot enforce the federal protections like the kind that I know David Pepper, the Laboratories of Autocracy author, I interviewed him in a book club that I hosted that he came to, and he reminded us about Article 4, Section 4, that the federal government, the government of the United States, shall guarantee a Republican form of government in every state. But we don't have a Congress that's willing to do that.
Yep.
And so we're almost bound to play the states' rights game with them because they have gathered so much mass and momentum, far more than Nazi Germany had. Really, when Hitler came to power, he didn't have as much support as the right wing.
Oh, he only had about 35% support when he came to power.
And so, yeah, and we certainly have that for the autocratic form of government. I don't know if people really understand that. But, I asked David Pepper this question. I said, when Louis Brandeis said laboratories of democracy, is this what he had in mind, these fascist right-wing states? And he said, and he's a law professor, he said, Justice Brandeis had to have imagined that this was possible. Yeah, he had to have imagined that it was possible. How likely? I don't know. But the point was, he said, is that states would experiment and test and see what works. And just like the mundane things like regulating businesses, which is where the original case started, how business license should be regulated, that they'll see if it works and if it doesn't. Other states will copy what works and what doesn't. So his answer was, and if fascism and autocracy doesn't work in these states, and that's why when you talk about, I know somebody's going to get angry with me like they did last week, and when I say, hey, if states want to outlaw birth control, and that's what it comes down to, if we don't have the federal protections anymore to stop it, then there's going to be upheaval in those states. It's not going to happen in California, Oregon, and Washington.
No, it's going to be Missouri first.
I know that sounds like I'm not sympathetic, but they're inviting the upheaval on themselves, and people need to stand up and let these legislatures, which have become, as I said to David Pepper, these legislative chambers of horrors. They're not laboratories of democracy. They're legislative chambers of horror.
Yeah, amen. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing it writ large, hugely and prominently in states like Texas and Florida that get all the headlines. But it's happening in every red state in America right now. And of course, Marsha Blackburn is from Missouri, and that's they're really cracking down on abortion there. And now they want to go after birth control. It's just incredible. They want to go after condoms, for God's sake. Paul, thank you.
Yeah.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's 45 minutes past the hour. Back with more of your calls in just a moment. The Thom Hartmann Program, your media support group for we, the people. And welcome back. James in Sitka, Alaska. Hey, James, thanks for watching us on Free Speech. What's up?
Oh, hey, Tom. How you doing? It's great to talk to you here. I've been listening to you for years. I remember the days of Brunch with Bernie, actually, with you.
Yeah, it's great.
But our only Republican representative in Alaska died the other day, Don Young.
Yeah.
And but I got this email here, and it said that he was worth like $55 million.
Really?
I don't know. Yeah.
I know very little bit about Don Young. How did he make $55 million?
Well, I don't know. That's my question. But I mean, you're just talking about it. Citizens United, isn't it? I don't know.
Yeah.
He just kept running.
It's entirely. I mean, he's a Republican.
Office.
Yeah, he's a Republican,
Yeah.
so a lot of these Republicans get very, very rich while they're in office, typically by trading stocks and things on inside information, or by getting these massive speaking fees. The right-wing billionaires and their front groups pay them to, as a way of basically, buying them.
Sure.
It wouldn't just be campaign contributions.
Right,
Yeah. James, I'm sorry I don't have an answer for you, but that's incredible. I'll keep an eye out for it. James, thanks for the call. It's great to hear from you after all this time. Sylvania in Venice, California, listening on KPFK. Hey, Sylvania, forgive me. What's up?
Sylviane.
Sylviana. Okay, even better. I'm sorry.
Sylviane. It's a French name.
Sylviana.
Anyway, Tom, I was listening to you and talking about why we don't have free education and socialized medicine and all of this in the U.S. And I think that's because we're paying for, in the U.S., we're paying for the so-called domination of the U.S. over the world thanks to the arms industry. So the arms industry is getting a lot of money from our budget, and it's the people in the U.S. are penalized for that. And right now, with the Ukraine and the fact that a lot of countries have their atomic bombs, we realize that the arms industry is going to become obsolete. And right now, they are really, selling as much as possible of their arms, and we're sitting on this huge amount of obsolete armament. But we're still funding all this, this industry for nothing, and are penalized with having no education and no health.
Yeah. I've never seen.
And I think we are at the peak of, at the end of U.S. dominance, and obviously China with 1.5 billion people will dominate the world, and we should let them dominate. Who cares? We should just not be in competition with anybody. Let the different countries have their style of living, and let's not spend huge amounts of money to destroy, social revolutions and everything, and always side with stupid religious right.
Yeah, and right-wingers. So, I would agree with you if those autocratic governments didn't start attacking other countries. but I've never seen a comparison.
Yeah, but you know that the US
I do agree with you about the obscenity of our defense spending. What I'm saying is,
I totally disagree with Putin, but you know that the U.S. has been provoking Russia forever and ever.
Yeah, but that's not what's going on here. What's going on here is a land grab by Putin. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. So we'll be right back. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. 27 Republican senators sent a letter to the Energy Secretary, Jennifer Granholm, echoing talking points that the American Petroleum Institute pushed out on Twitter recently, saying that basically if we're going to stop importing Russian oil into the United States, which, by the way, the Russian oil imports into the U.S. are just a trickle. It's just a tiny drop in the bucket. If we're going to stop doing that, we need to, and these are some quotes from the API Twitter, we need to unleash America's energy. We need to release permits for energy development on federal lands. We need to issue offshore leasing plans for the next 5 years. We need to accelerate energy permitting infrastructure. We need to reduce regulatory and legal uncertainty. Right. It's a scam. And these 27 Republican senators are owned by the big fossil fuel companies because the Supreme Court allowed it with their Citizens United decision. We have to do something about this. There's a whole video rant about it over at thomhartmann.com. Check it out. Welcome back. 51 minutes past the hour. Matthew in Woodstock. Hey, Matthew, what's up? Woodstock, New York.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Thank you for sharing this platform so generously that you've worked so hard to establish. I really appreciate it. I wanted to call in response to your question about, quote unquote, saving American democracy. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to make a couple points. One, that it's hard to save something that you culturally appropriated from the people that you stole the land from to, establish. You can't have a country without a land base, and all of our land claims are based on treaties, for the most part, that no one really argues were all broken. So if you broke every legitimate land claim that you have, then you don't really have a legitimate government, nonetheless a legitimate democracy to start
So
with.
are you suggesting that all non-native people should just leave North America and go back to Europe and Africa?
Of course not, Tom. Of course not.
Then what are you suggesting we should do, Matthew?
at the very least, acknowledge that. Have a real acknowledgement in a statement of reconciliation by honoring the treaties themselves. We declared in our Constitution that treaties are the highest law of the land. It's the reason why.
No, I get it, and I agree with you. Honoring all those treaties, of course, would mean giving back probably half of America to Native Americans, which is a process that I think probably deserves discussion. But I can just tell you it's not going to happen. Matthew, I appreciate your concern. I wrote an entire book about your concern. I'm with you on that. It's a terrible history, but we're here now, and we've got to deal with right now. Eve in Palmdale, California. Hey, Eve. Thanks for listening to SiriusXM.
Hi,
What's
Tom.
up?
Hi, Tom. I just have a very simple solution to this democracy problem.
Mm-hmm.
The Democrats need to stop wringing their hands and just go to the polls every election, school board to president, and just get in there. Because if we don't just get in there and let our voices be heard, we're going to be trampled over and we'll be in a fascist country.
I agree. And once we get enough power, as it were, enough representation in Washington, D.C., we need to reverse the Citizens United decision and the at least the 20th century decisions that preceded it. Buckley and Bellotti. Because these are the decisions that set us up for a Soviet-style, Russian-style oligarchy, and that's the direction that we're heading. And it ain't a good thing. It definitely ain't a good thing. Thanks a lot for the call, Eve. Tim in Aloha, Oregon. Hey, Tim, what's up?
Yeah, it's all this nonsense is going on. I call it the two Ps of what's going to happen to unfortunately maybe put the Republicans back into control in the House and the Senate. Putin and petroleum, those are the two key issues that are dominating the world right now. It's scary, because a lot of people just can't put anything in historical context anymore. I've been in the same neighborhood 32 years. I have a couple degrees in history, and just talking to people in the street is scary. They don't care. They're concerned with their everyday finances, whether they can keep their heads financially above water. And then you've got some guy like Tucker Carlson talk about abuse of the First Amendment. All that man does every day is scream fire in a crowded theater. It's getting really bad.
Oh, not just Tucker. I mean, that's the entire network.
Oh, yeah.
That's how Rupert Murdoch became a billionaire. He did it first in Australia, then the UK, and now the U.S.
Yeah, but he's the new Bill O'Reilly, and you've got Greta Van Susteren and Sean Hannity and the whole group of them, But they're the number one. And look at the recent thing about the Coke industries. They don't want to pull out of.
Nestle too. Nestle has also said they're not pulling out of Russia.
Yeah, and those are the things you have to look at, because ultimately that's the thing can delay any sanity in what's going on in this world. And the closer we get to the elections, the Republicans know this kind of stuff is going to shore up their base.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. Tim, thank you for the call. Ari in Eureka, California. Hey, Ari, what's up?
Hey, Tom. I think that this might be a solution for us. Because our government isn't representational anymore, they're management paid by the oligarchy, and they're responsible to them, not us. We need a union, and we need a union with a strike fund so that the American people can afford to go on strike. And in the meantime, women need to go on strike until we get our bodily rights back. That means nobody gets any until we get our rights.
Like the, what was it that happened in ancient Greece?
Yes, exactly. It works.
Yeah. I'm all in favor of both. I would like to see these incorporated into an existing structure, like a takeover of the Democratic Party, just because it's there and it would be easier. But the challenge is the previous caller, as he pointed out, that average Americans are just trying to get on about their lives. They're trying to figure out how they're going to pay their rent. They're dealing with medical bills.
That's why we need a strike fund. Like, all unions have a strike fund so that if they have to go on strike, their members can afford to stay home and go on strike because the strike fund will pay them. Yeah. Well, there you go. All right. Thanks for the call. I've got some great ideas here. Some great ideas. I put front and center ending Citizens United. The Supreme Court is what has turned America from a more or less a democracy into an oligarchy. The Supreme Court has been the driving force of this, but it's because they have been stacked by oligarchs. We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann program. They are HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit delivery service. More info at HelloFresh.com, code TOM. The hidden history of Big Brother in America, how the death of privacy and the rise of surveillance threaten us and our democracy, by Thom Hartmann. More information at all book outlets. Wild Alaskan Company, 100% sustainable wild-caught seafood delivered right to your door. More info at wildalaskancompany.com/Tom. Cozy Earth, better sleep, better you. More info at cozyearth.com, promo code TOM. The latest views and opinions from U.S. politics and other fascinating subjects too, including cutting-edge science reports at hartmanreport.com. And Dinovite, a whole food supplement for your pet's immune system. More info at dinovite.com.
It is, I promise, the last week of the Free Speech TV fundraiser. This last week is, things have been going kind of slow. We've talked about this before. I realize there's enormous competition for nonprofit dollars out there. Free Speech TV has not hit their goals. In fact, they're in the neighborhood of 25% short of their goals, and thus one more last week, one for this fourth week. It's tough, but hey, we've got to pay the bills. We've got to make sure that the organization continues on a sound footing, that the electrons continue to bounce off the satellites and come to you. So, step by step. And for this end of drive, the end of the pledge drive, there's actually a challenge pledge that Sandy, frontline funder Sandy in New Mexico, has made. Sandy says, well, this is what the note says. In memory of his late partner, Storm Diana Townsend, frontline funder Sandy in New Mexico is inviting you to make a new donation to help us reach our final goal and unlock an extra $10,000. This is the note from the good folks at Free Speech TV. Sandy describes Storm as a pro-union socialist, but her true passion was for indigenous communities. Storm worked with Navajo artists throughout her career as a sculptor. This week, let's honor Storm and all of our community members, past and present, who continue to make this kind of storytelling possible, like on, this network. Every new gift made before Friday will go toward unlocking that $10,000 challenge. So if we can hit, if you and I and the other programs here on this network, if we can hit this $10,000 goal, then we will unlock another $10,000. If we can hit our goal for this. For the end of this pledge drive, we can unlock another $10,000 that will go to, helping make Free Speech TV whole, helping fill the budget hole that they're facing right now. So big challenge, lot to do. Last opportunity this week, these next 5 days, today and the next 4 days, to participate in Free Speech TV, to really and truly step up and say, yes, I'm going to be part of this thing. There are a bunch of premiums that Free Speech TV is offering. They're pretty much the same as we've been talking about all week, but I'll run through them real quickly for you. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV clear sticker, like a cling window sticker, or a Free Speech TV bumper sticker. Or with a $20 gift, the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV Seed Bomb. Celebrate Earth Day every day. This is a really cool seed bomb. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hat or the Free Speech TV mug. With a $100 gift, Free Speech TV will plant a tree. With a $120 gift, it's the one and only way to get your very own autographed copy of the hidden history of Big Brother in America, and my book on privacy and what's going on and how bad it could get and where we're going and all that kind of thing. Or you can have the Free Speech TV Solidarity T-shirt with that $120 gift. With a $240 gift, you have two choices. One is the Free Speech TV meet and greet, the virtual meet and greet that we do on Zoom, and the other is the Free Speech TV banned book box. And this is particularly cool. And by the way, you can also make a commitment of $20 a month for a year to get the banned book box. So we're still trying, as I mentioned, last Friday, we're still trying to build this foundation of regular monthly contributors, small $5, $10, $20 monthly contributors to support this network. This is how structures always work. You've got to build the foundation first, and this is the foundation for us. And the banned book box includes The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, a brilliant novel, Mouse by Art Spiegelman, which is the illustrated story that for reasons that I still can't understand, that Republicans want to ban from our public schools. It's a story about what life was like under the Nazis in Germany in the 1930s. And the third book that you get with this $240 gift is Beyond Magenta, Transgender Teens Speak Out by Susan Cooklin. And so, three marvelous books that Republicans don't want you to read. Literally. I mean, these are all books that have been banned in various states. So that's with a $240 gift. And of course, with a $1,000 gift, come here to Portland and we can hang out together. I'll take you to lunch. You can spend an hour in the studio, watch the last hour of our program, and then we'll walk down the street to a restaurant and have a nice lunch together. And this is all assuming that kind of COVID has passed, right? Or they come up with a super shot or something like that. I think we're going to get there. I really do. I realize that there's probably one more wave right now coming from this Omicron D2 variant, but I think we're going to get there. So your $1,000 gifts are appreciated now, even if we can't host you right at this moment. The bottom line, though, is we need to unlock that $10,000 match pledge, and we also need to hit our goals. It's just that simple. We got to pay the bills. And if we want to keep this network on the air. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution to Free Speech TV, or reaffirm your contribution if you've made contributions in the past and you'd like to add a little bit to it. This is the time. Please call now. Thank you. Do it. The book is The Last Hours.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back to the second hour of our program. The first session of the International Criminal Court at The Hague started today. The court is beginning an investigation into Russia's war against Ukraine. A number of nations have brought this, more than 30 nations are in the process of ratifying their membership in the ICC. There are 123 members right now. The United States is not one of them, by the way. They began operating in 2002. It's based on a treaty called the Rome Statute that was ratified in 1998. And this should not be confused with the International Court of Justice, which also sits at The Hague. And the International Court of Justice has explicitly called on Putin to stop the genocide, the destruction, the massive, his invasion of Ukraine. But the International Court of Justice looks at legal issues between nations. The International Criminal Court prosecutes war criminals. And they have been looking into Russia and Ukraine since 2014 with regard to the situation in Crimea and the Donbass, and now they've expanded that to include this. They prosecute crimes against humanity, war crimes, and crimes of aggression. For example, the International Criminal Court conducted trials against about the genocide of the Tutsis in Rwanda by the Hutus. the genocide in Srebrenica in Yugoslavia back in 1995, and the use of chemical weapons in Darfur in South Sudan, what's next door to what's now South Sudan, in 2002. There are basically 6 stages to a prosecution. Stage 1 is they announce the prosecution and begin their investigation. That happened on February 28th when Chief Prosecutor Karim Ahmad Khan announced that the ICC was launching this investigation. They've received appeals from 39 countries that they investigate Russia and Putin for war crimes. That includes the EU member states, Australia, Canada, the United Kingdom, the English-speaking countries. The United States couldn't because we're not a signatory to this. And I think we're not a signatory to this because if we were, we probably would have seen George W. Bush and Dick Cheney being tried for war crimes. In March of 2016, Karim Khan arrived in Ukraine and began his work. They are in the country right now collecting evidence. On March 17th, they sent an official request to meet with Russia, which Russia is ignoring. That's stage 1. Second stage is the suspects are identified and an arrest warrant is issued. The third stage is pre-trial, where the charges, they have the hearings, and the judges decide usually within 60 days if there's enough evidence. The fourth stage is the actual trial, and the judges issue a verdict. Fifth stage, there's a right to appeal, and the sixth stage, after the appeal has been exhausted, there's a sentence. And they can impose prison sentences of up to 30 years or even life imprisonment. They can impose a fine or confiscate the income, property, or assets that have been obtained by these war crimes. And anybody who has been convicted by the International Criminal Court will not be able to visit any of the 123 countries who signed the Rome Statute. Again, that doesn't include the United States or Russia. In addition, these criminals will be automatically included in the ICC's wanted list. And so they can go after heads of state, they can go after members of government, they can go after elected representatives, they can go after pretty much anybody, the International Criminal Court. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it, since we're not part of the International Criminal Court, and neither is the United Kingdom and neither is Russia, excuse me, the United Kingdom is, but nonetheless, another way to do this would be the one that Gordon Brown and Sir John Major in the United Kingdom are suggesting. Both of them former prime ministers of the United Kingdom, along with 140 academics, lawyers, and politicians. They've signed a petition calling for a brand new legal system. They want to model it after the Nuremberg trials, where the Nazis were tried. So a standalone, legal entity, because the International Criminal Court, I went through the 6 stages for the International Criminal Court, and they're gathering evidence and all that, but they cannot begin the trial without the permission of the United Nations Security Council. The International Criminal Court is a child of the UN, and Russia is a permanent member of the Security Council, and so they'll just veto it. So what Gordon Brown and John Major are saying is we need a Nuremberg tribunal. Maybe even hold it in Nuremberg, who knows? And they're saying that this can be done in addition to what the ICC is doing, because the ICC is gathering information. Writing in the Daily Mail, former Prime Minister Brown said that creating the new tribunal would close off that loophole of the ability of Russia to veto the ICC prosecution, so that, quote, Putin can, the loophole that, quote, Putin could use to dodge justice. He went on to say, we must move with speed to assure the people of Ukraine that we are committed to action and not just warm words. And we must make Putin's collaborators aware that the noose is tightening. If they do not distance themselves from Putin, they face prosecution and prison, wrote Mr. Brown. The Nuremberg trials, by the way, were the first ever international war crime trials. And Brown continues, he says, as Nuremberg, we held the Nazi war criminals to account. 8 decades on, we must ensure that there will be a day of reckoning for Putin and his colleagues. Amen. Amen. I mean, this number one. The second story I wanted to share with you this hour and have a conversation with you about, and this is one that I think may be even more, more interesting to discuss, is what the Republicans are up to. Senator Marsha Blackburn released a video statement over the last weekend in which she talked about and I'm quoting from her. She said, constitutionally unsound rulings like Griswold v. Connecticut confuse Tennesseans and leave Congress wondering who gave the court permission to bypass our system of checks and balances. Now, what's she talking about here in Griswold v. Connecticut? There's actually a whole chapter devoted to this in my new book, The Hidden History of Big Brother in America, because it was the first case in the history of the United States where a right to privacy was identified in the Constitution explicitly by that name. 1965. There were laws on the books that went back to the 1800s, and one in Connecticut specifically that went back to the 1880s or 1890s, that said it was illegal for anybody, including a married couple, to have any form of birth control in their home, to be in possession of birth control. Birth control was as illegal as drugs, right? You couldn't have birth control in Connecticut and in multiple other states as well. And the people who were prosecuted for this were mostly single women, but occasionally even married couples. This was a married couple that brought the Griswold case, if my memory serves me right. And in that case, in a 7-2 ruling in 1965, the U.S. Supreme Court said, no, we are looking at the First, Third, Fourth, Fifth, and Ninth Amendments, and we find a right to privacy. And that right to privacy includes your own bedroom. The government can't kick in the door and see if you've got birth control. Now, they were talking about condoms and diaphragms back then. Well, they were also talking about the early birth control pill, which was legalized in 61. This was 65. They didn't legalize birth control for single people, by the way, in this decision in 1965. That came in a Supreme Court decision in 1972. So right up until 1972, in some states, including Connecticut, it was a crime for a single person to possess any form of birth control, including a condom. So now Marsha Blackburn comes out and says she's going to oppose the nomination of Ketanji Brown Jackson because Judge Jackson refuses to say that Griswold was wrongly decided. In fact, Judge Jackson thinks that Griswold was correctly decided, that people should have the right to have birth control in their own home. Here you have one of the most influential Republicans in the United States Senate, a secondary member of Republican leadership. She is on the Judiciary Committee that will be interrogating, or is probably right now as we're speaking, interrogating Judge Jackson, saying that Tennesseans are confused and Congress is wondering who gave the court permission to bypass our system of checks and balances. In other words, the law against birth control was passed by Connecticut. Who the hell does the Supreme Court think they are overturning that law? That's the essence of Marsha Blackburn's statement. Now, where this gets really interesting, and by the way, this 1965 Griswold decision, being the first time the right to privacy was found in our Constitution, and the reason why, of course, is the word privacy doesn't exist in the Constitution because in the 1770s it referred to using the toilet, which is why they're called privies. But nonetheless, this decision, or this argument that Blackburn is making, that Griswold should be reversed, would end the legal right to own birth control in the United States. Now, last summer, the Republican Study Committee issued a report titled, or memo titled, Lean into the Culture War. And they said in this document, the Republican Study Committee, they said, we are in a culture war and we are winning. Marsha Blackburn's statement that we should criminalize birth control in the United States is part of that Republican culture war. So my question to you is, how far can they go before we start saying, before Republicans, before moderate voters, what would you call it, independent voters, in the middle voters, before they start saying, wait a minute. I mean, making it harder to vote, you've got, down in Texas, as many as 30-40% of voter applications are being turned down. In Florida, people are being stripped from the voting rolls. In Ohio, they even took it to the Supreme Court. May we please purge all these black people from the rolls in Akron and Cleveland? The Supreme Court says, yes, you may. In a totally partisan 100% Republican appointee decision. And America hasn't freaked out. I mean, I think African Americans across the country are going, whoa. But by and large, white people in America are like, well, that's okay with us. So is this going to be the thing? I mean, they're going after trans kids. They're going after gay people. They're going after lesbians. I mean, at what is it going to take for Americans to say, Republicans, you've gone too friggin' far. We now know, the jig is up. We now know what the game is. The game is to put us into subjection. Is to basically, overwhelm America with right-wing ideology, to ban our books, to shut down our schools. Enough already.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Will this be it? Somehow I doubt it, but, because it's not getting any publicity, but, maybe it's a start. What say you? And welcome back. Yep, there's my mouse. Juanita in Presser, Washington. Hey, Juanita, thank you for watching Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Oh, well, I'm glad you brought up the Comstock Act. That's what I was calling about.
What's the Comstock Act?
The Comstock Act of 1873, where it restricts.
Oh, that was the law that restricted birth control. Okay.
Yes. I didn't hear it in the first section, I guess, and I hung on, and I wanted to tell you about it. And what is it? Arizona tried that, and that was struck down.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about the Comstock Act. I'm sorry, I'm not well informed on that.
Okay, the Comstock Act was where that birth control, abortion, everything, it was obscene.
Mm.
It
was regulating women, essentially.
Yeah, it's one and the same thing what you're talking about, the Connecticut.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was brought in in 1873 by a preacher.
Of course. Of course.
What can I tell you? But anyway, I think what was the gal who started Planned Parenthood? Uh-huh. She was arrested under that law for handing out literature because they considered it obscene.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. You got to read up in the history. It was.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. The Comstock laws were a series of federal acts passed by the United States Congress and the Grant administration. Very interesting. So it was the Act for the Suppression or Trade in and Circulation of Obscene Literature and Articles of Immoral Use, and criminalized the use of the post office for transporting contraceptives, abortifacients, sex toys, personal letters with sexual content, or obscene material. And then there was a law passed in 1909. Well, that's interesting. So this had to do with federal, mostly with the post office.
Right, but it was overturned.
Yeah, in Griswold v. Connecticut and Eisenstadt v. Baird in '72. Right.
But people just don't understand where some of these laws come from and how far they went before they were overturned.
Yeah, given that these things were overturned in 1965 and 1972, I mean, probably the majority of Americans were born after that. Right now, I mean, I don't know where our demographics, how they break out, but certainly large quantities of Americans have no recollection whatsoever of when condoms were illegal, or when it was against the law.
Can you imagine all the condom machines in men's restrooms being illegal?
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. It really is.
And you're correct. A lot of the history of the United States, many people don't understand, and nor do they take the time to research it.
Yeah, sadly. And we don't teach it in our schools anymore either.
Right, and this is what's particularly sad. It is, I don't know, what can I say? But I wanted to get that Comstock law in.
Thank you, Juanita.
Anyway.
Thank you so much. I'm so blessed to be surrounded by the smartest listeners and viewers in media world. I'll tell you, the things I learned doing this show. We'll be back 22 minutes past the hour. Stick around. Share the Thom Hartmann program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann program. Welcome back. 23 minutes past the hour. Boy, what a steaming pile here that the Republicans are getting. Kenyatta in Los Angeles. Hey, Kenyatta, what's on your mind today?
Well, I wanted to talk about a couple of things real quick, and the first of which is the Senate hearings going on right now at the Judiciary Committee for Justice Jackson. Mm-hmm. I do want to remind people that one of the greatest legal minds in American history we lost this year on January 7th. Her name was Lonnie Guinier. She was a black woman whose nomination for Attorney General was pulled by, in a very cowardly way, I might add, by Bill Clinton. And I suspect black women that have gone before the Senate Judiciary Committee, including Anita Hill, have not been treated very well in the past. I'm very interested in seeing how this manifests itself with Judge Jackson. Given her judicial temperament, I'm not a big fan of Judge Jackson. But I can tell you that historically, black women that have been before the Senate Judiciary Committee have not been treated very well. Yeah. So that's something to keep an eye on. I also wanted to talk about something that you have mentioned, Tom, several times over the last few weeks, which I absolutely agree with, by the way, and that's being lied into wars, lied into Vietnam, lied into Iraq, and one could even say lied into Afghanistan. Yep. But here's the thing, Tom. If my spouse comes home and she smells of Brute and I wear Polo cologne, if the phone rings once and then it stops and then suddenly she's in the other room answering, I'm dating myself now, making a phone call, sure, I probably know something's up. Yeah. If he comes home with lipstick on his collar, he's suddenly working late, I probably know something is up. So here's what I'm getting at. At what point, since the power is supposedly in this so-called democracy in the hands of the people, why is it that the people are not accountable? We should know if they're lying to us. If we hold the power, we should hold them to account. So I think that there's some responsibility that, and particularly, we keep buying the same lie over and over. Yeah. So I wanted to say that. And finally, there are no black oligarchs and no black fascists. Yeah, it's a good point. I think there's only 2 black billionaires in the United States. One is Oprah and the other's a guy who I believe runs a hedge fund. I could be wrong. Oprah, I suppose, is politically active, but, in a fairly benign way. She's not setting up think tanks all over the country and pushing Supreme Court justices onto the court and stuff like that. Right. So, excellent points. You also wanted to note that the U.S. has used banned weapons? I did. Tom, there's something, the United States invented cluster munitions. Right. The United States... we manufacture them in Ohio. Exactly. The United States used depleted uranium munitions, very deadly, and for a long time in Iraq. Right. Banned by the international community. Napalm, which was used widely in Vietnam, and my father suffered from some of those effects, was one of the greatest war crimes in history. And lastly, the United States still has in its arsenal something called bouncing Betties, which is a mine, which you step on it, it's spring-loaded, it jumps up 5 feet just so it can blow your head off. Well, where's the accountability in an international criminal court for the U.S.? That's what I want to know. I'm with you, Kenyatta. Kenyatta, thanks a lot for the call. It's always great to hear from you. It's 27 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Back with more of your calls on the other side of this break. It's the Thom Hartmann program, talk media for the sane among us. Yes, we are still here. It is, I promise, the last week of the Free Speech TV fundraiser. This last week is, things have been going kind of slow. We've talked about this before. I realize there's enormous competition for nonprofit dollars out there. Free Speech TV has not hit their goals. In fact, they're in the neighborhood of 25% short of their goals, and thus one more last week, one for this fourth week. It's tough, but hey, we've got to pay the bills. We've got to make sure that the organization continues on a sound footing, that the electrons continue to bounce off the satellites and come to you. So, step by step. And for this end of drive, the end of the pledge drive, there's actually a challenge pledge that Sandy, frontline funder Sandy in New Mexico has made. Sandy says, well, this is what the note says. In memory of his late partner, Storm Diana Townsend, frontline funder Sandy in New Mexico is inviting you to make a new donation to help us reach our final goal and unlock an extra $10,000. This is the note from the good folks at Free Speech TV. Sandy describes Storm as a pro-union socialist, but her true passion was for indigenous communities. Storm worked with Navajo artists throughout her career as a sculptor. This week, let's honor Storm and all of our community members, past and present, who continue to make this kind of storytelling possible, like on, this network. Every new gift made before Friday will go toward unlocking that $10,000 challenge. So if we can hit, if you and I and the other programs here on this network, if we can hit this $10,000 goal, then we will unlock another $10,000. If we can hit our goal for this. For the end of this pledge drive, we can unlock another $10,000 that will go to helping make Free Speech TV whole, helping fill the budget hole that they're facing right now. So big challenge, lot to do. Last opportunity this week, these next 5 days, today and the next 4 days, to participate in Free Speech TV, to really and truly step up and say, yes, I'm going to be part of this thing. There are a bunch of premiums that Free Speech TV is offering. They're pretty much the same as we've been talking about all week, but I'll run through them real quickly for you. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV clear sticker, like a cling window sticker, or a Free Speech TV bumper sticker. With a $20 gift, the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV Seed Bomb. Celebrate Earth Day every day. This is a really cool seed bomb. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hat or the Free Speech TV mug. With a $100 gift, Free Speech TV will plant a tree. With a $120 gift, it's the one and only way to get your very own autographed copy of the hidden history of Big Brother in America. And my book on privacy and what's going on and how bad it could get and where we're going and all that kind of thing. Or you can have the Free Speech TV Solidarity t-shirt with that $120 gift. With a $240 gift, you have two choices. One is the Free Speech TV meet and greet, the virtual meet and greet that we do on Zoom, and the other is the Free Speech TV banned book box. And this is particularly cool. And by the way, you can also make a commitment of $20 a month for a year to get the banned book box. So we're still trying, as I mentioned, last Friday, we're still trying to build this foundation of regular monthly contributors, small $5, $10, $20 monthly contributors to support this network. This is how structures always work. You've got to build the foundation first, and this is the foundation for us. And the banned book box includes The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, a brilliant novel, Mouse by Art Spiegelman, which is the illustrated story that for reasons that I still can't understand, that Republicans want to ban from our public schools. It's a story about what life was like under the Nazis in Germany in the 1930s. And the third book that you get with this $240 gift is Beyond Magenta, Transgender Teens Speak Out by Susan Cookland. And so, 3 marvelous books that Republicans don't want you to read. Literally. I mean, these are all books that have been banned in various states. So that's with a $240 gift. And of course, with a $1,000 gift, come here to Portland and we can hang out together. I'll take you to lunch. You can spend an hour in the studio, watch the last hour of our program, and then we'll walk down the street to a restaurant and have a nice lunch together. And this is all assuming that kind of COVID has passed, right? Or they come up with a super shot or something like that. I think we're going to get there. I really do. I realize that there's probably one more wave right now coming from this Omicron D2 variant, but I think we're going to get there. So your $1,000 gifts are appreciated now, even if we can't host you right at this moment. The bottom line, though, is we need to unlock that $10,000 matching pledge, and we also need to hit our goals. It's just that simple. We got to pay the bills, and if we want to keep this network on the air. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution to Free Speech TV, or reaffirm your contribution if you've made contributions in the past and you'd like to add a little bit to it. This is the time. Please call now. Thank you. Do it. Hey, I've got a new book out. It's called The Hidden History of Big Brother in America, How the Death of Privacy and the Rise of Surveillance Threaten Us and Our Democracy. Available wherever you find fine books. They often say that Republican Senator from Wisconsin, Ron Johnson, is the stupidest guy in the entire United States Senate. I get it. Tommy Tuberville gives him a run for his money, but he just came out with what has to be at least the very stupidest idea of the year. Ron Johnson is proposing, there's a shortage of child care workers right now in America. There's a whole bunch of good reasons for that. But he has proposed a solution. His suggestion, any woman in America who's getting any kind of public assistance, you're getting food stamps, you're getting, tuition relief, whatever it may be, you would be forced to go into daycare centers and care for children. Yeah, seriously. This is Ron Johnson's idea. People who had no training, and one of his assistants said, well, it's just like teachers who teach in public schools where their own kids attend. No, it's not. These are not trained professionals. There's no union. This is nuts. There's a whole video about it over at ThomHartmann.com. Check it out. Got to edit that out. Okay, it is 35 minutes past the hour, picking up your calls here. And Edward in Battle Creek, Michigan. Hey, Edward, what's on your mind?
I wanted to mention one person's name that is significant to the discussion on reproductive rights, and that is Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood.
Right.
Who her views and those of her peers contributed compulsory sterilization laws in 30 U.S. states.
Yeah, she was a big fan of eugenics, just like Thomas Jefferson held slaves. It doesn't mean that every idea they had was stupid or terrible.
Forced sterilization of.
Yeah, Edward, I'm not going to go there. There's no point in it. Edward, yeah, Margaret Sanger had some horrible views, but she started Planned Parenthood, which is doing great work today, and slandering Planned Parenthood or going after her history isn't going to help the situation today. Mark in Lexington, North Carolina. Hey, Mark, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, how are you?
I am well.
I just wanted to say really quick, anytime the Republican Party says something's really bad, I got to question, well, if they say it's really bad, it must be good. And one thing that they've been saying is really bad that they've been up in arms about is critical race theory. And I spent I'm not a graduate student of the law school, but I was able to study a lot about critical race theory in the past 5 days. And what was amazing to me is a great big hunk of critical race theory isn't about black people. It's about the indigenous peoples of the United States. And I was shocked to find out that, one of the things that's a huge chunk of it is how they the United States actively tried to exterminate all Indians.
The largest genocide in the history of the world, over there, at least of the modern world, the last 5,000 years, recorded history, was the genocide of the Native Americans by Europeans on the North American continent. And by the way, it wasn't just limited to the United States. It was happening in Canada and Mexico as well.
Exactly. And what was amazing to me was, I watched, I'm sure you're familiar with Jon Stewart's podcast. Jon Stewart had a person who was very knowledgeable on critical race theory, and he brought that exact example up. He said it's not just about black Americans. He said, in 1865, we fought a civil war, and they were so-called freed, if you wanted to call it that. But the annihilation of the Indians continued well into 1900 and a little farther beyond.
Yeah, as a policy, and I would argue that maybe annihilation would not be the right word at that point, but right up until probably, well, actually, I'd say right up until today. I mean, we're continuing to break treaties. I mean, look at what Donald Trump did with some of those federal lands that had been traditional native burial grounds and sacred spaces, turning them over to mining companies and things like that. I mean, it hasn't stopped, Mark.
Well, what's happened, what really shocked me was the Oneida Indians. I think you may know about those in the upper state New York. Yep. They got their land back, and a town had been constructed there. And when they got their land back, they said, well, we should be tax exempt. And the town fought them all the way to the Supreme Court, saying, no, you will be taxed, regardless if it's your land or not. And I was shocked to find out that the vote that pushed it over the edge came from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, say, yes, they have to pay taxes, but it was their property that was given back. They actually bought it back. Yeah. The tribe bought the property back.
Oh, interesting.
So I think it just continues, and I'm married to a full-blooded Cherokee, so,
yeah, therefore your interest. Yeah, I get it, Mark. I get it. And I think your point that, when the Republican Party starts squealing about something, you probably know you need to pay some attention to it, not to their spin on it, but you need to find the truth. Mark, thank you. Very well said. Chaz in Lakewood, Washington. Hey, Chaz, what's up?
Buenos dias, mi amigo.
Buenos dias. ¿Cómo estás, then?
Oui, Monsignor. Now, I'm just concerned that the Republicans want to lead us once again down the path of destruction. Now, I've seen from a couple of different sources that on this planet that currently contains 8 billion, we should only be hovering around 2 billion. Now, 60%, almost 60% of the world is Asian, and China is onto this, and they understand that there are limited resources. Anytime you pack a bunch of rats, forgive the analogy, into a small space and certain things start to crop up. They're going to have smaller litters. They're going to have plagues. They're going to kill each other.
And war emerges.
Why are we not paying it? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and we need to do something about population. I disagree with you that the carrying capacity of the world is 2 billion. I think it's 1 billion. I think 1 billion humans on this earth is probably the point at which you could have a homeostatic environment, a relationship between humanity and the planet. But but we're splitting hairs here, Chaz. I'm
it's not something I came up with myself. I've seen a couple of different sources. I wish I would see more about this, though.
Yeah. No, there's like 4 chapters about this in Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight, and if we want to do something about population, by the way, the answer, birth control needs to be available to people, but the answer isn't just pushing out birth control. The principal answer is empowering women. In those nations where women have equal political and economic power with men, like you see in Scandinavia, Iceland, et cetera, population growth pretty much goes to zero. And, in other words, population stabilizes. And that's a good and healthy thing, and we need more of that. Chaz, thanks a lot for the call. It's great to hear from you. Bart in Weaverville, North Carolina. Hey, Bart, what's up?
Hey, I'm wondering if you know about the 15th Amendment of the Constitution.
I am familiar with it, yeah. Why?
It says here the rights of a citizen of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, previous conditions of servitude.
Correct.
In this Section 2, the Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Now, how can the fascist GOP party deny or try to do away in any fashion whatsoever with black people's vote?
Well, the Supreme Court has decided most recently in Shelby County v. Holder, back during the Obama administration, that yes, black people have a right to vote, and you may not deny that to African Americans based on the fact that they're African Americans. But if you want to make that case, you have to prove that the denial of the vote is specifically and exclusively targeting African Americans. So, if you had a bunch of people and, a bunch of Republicans in Texas sitting around in a publicly recorded session saying, hey, let's get together and let's make sure that no black people can vote in Texas and all the white people can vote as easy as they want. And we're going to pass these laws that will accomplish that. If you had some sort of an evidence trail like that, you might be able to bring it to a court and say what they're doing is wrong. But the Supreme Court has so narrowly circumscribed the 15th Amendment. And by the way, they could have gone the other way. They could have, and this goes back to the 1920s, by the way, and they could have said the 15th Amendment asserts that all Americans have a right to vote, including African Americans. And instead, the Supreme Court said all Americans have a right to vote, and that right cannot be abridged because of race. It can be abridged because of politics. And that was the decision in Ohio, where the Ohio Secretary of State was purging people off the voting rolls, disproportionately black people, massively disproportionately in large cities which were Democratic strongholds in Ohio. This is how the Republican Party in Ohio is held on to power. I mean, they had purged hundreds of thousands of names. They got sued. It got taken all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, you can't prove that you're purging these names because these people are black, and therefore the state of Ohio can continue doing this. And along with kind of tipping their hat to this BS excuse, pardon me, this this BS excuse that we're just trying to keep the rolls clean, the voting rolls. This is our obligation. This is what we had to. They were cagey. They were mailing out postcards, and if you didn't send the postcard back, you got bounced, and the postcard looked like spam mail. And this is something Republicans have been doing since the 60s. This was how Karl Rove made his chops back in the 80s, was caging. Running caging operations. So, Bart, you're right on the 15th Amendment. Sadly, the Supreme Court disagrees with you. And that's why we need a new Supreme Court. Bart, thank you for the caller. We need to expand the Supreme Court so that they can take a look at some of these crazy right-wing decisions, including Citizens United and Shelby County. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
45 minutes past the hour in the place where despair is not an option, the Thom Hartmann program. And welcome back. Joy in Marion, Illinois. Hey, Joy, what's on your mind today?
Hello, Tom. I was just reading about Frank Zappa, and I so agree with what he said. The biggest threat to America today is its own federal government. We don't need the Army to protect. We need to be protected from our own government. And I think that with a few exceptions, our Congress is a mafia. They receive money from the oligarchs so they can get in another year, and none of them ever resign. They die before they'll ever get out of there. And I think we need to know this, the people, that the Congress is not our friend.
Yeah. Joy, the problem here is the Congress that is, I mean, look at what the House of Representatives has passed. The Democrats control the House of Representatives, and they have passed legislation to expand health care, to end radically reduce student debt, it's just they've passed a lot of really, really good legislation, all to expand voting rights, all of which has died in the Senate at the hands of every single Republican except Lisa Murkowski and Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. So I don't think it's so much that we need to be protected from our government as much as we need to free our government from the greedy clutches of America's oligarchy.
Oh, definitely. And when I say Congress, I mean both the Senate and the House.
Yeah.
Because it goes back and forth. We think, oh, gosh, if this is passed, oh, this would be great. We'd be getting something.
Yeah.
But then the Joe Manchin, oh, he's a damn Democrat, and he doesn't know it. He doesn't ever side with the Democrats on anything.
Well, he does. He has sided with the Democrats on a lot of consequential pieces of legislation, and it's a good thing that he's still voting as a Democrat in some regards. The problem is that Joe Manchin is the fossil fuel industry. He owns two coal companies, or his son now owns them, and he's making $500,000 a year selling coal, and so he's not going to do anything to end the power of coal. And Kyrsten Sinema is now taking big money from Big Pharma.
Like we don't need them.
Well, that's why we have elections, Joy, and
they serve themselves.
Yeah, the sad news is that both of these people were elected 2 years ago. It's going to be another 4 years before they can be replaced, and or maybe it'll be. Yeah, it won't be this cycle. No, it'll be 2024 that Manchin and Sinema are up for election. So they were both elected 3 years ago. So,
and also, you remember Dr. Guy McPherson, don't you?
I do.
Dr. Guy McPherson.
I do remember
He
him.
is a scientist.
He is. Yeah, and he's one of the leading voices about the disasters coming down the road from climate change.
That's true.
And people need to pay attention to him. Joy, thanks a lot for the call. It's 49 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls right after this. Stick around. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, your media support group for We the People. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. It's 10 minutes before the hour. Welcome back. Steve in St. Petersburg, Florida. Hey, Steve, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. First of all, I know you don't like personal compliments about all of your incredible skills and wisdom. So let me just say that your show's callers, as you've mentioned many times, and the dialogue that you have is more informative than any other media news source I can find.
Well, thank you, Steve. So what'd you call about?
Thank you. Now I will say this to you. I am a troll hunter, and those of us in the troll hunter community are very concerned that Putin and his troll farms have upped their game.
Oh, and they are winning in some places like India, for example. I mean, it's incredible.
God. Tom, they are smart at psychological warfare, marketing, persuasion engineering, neuro-linguistic programming, etc. I just want to give everybody a brief thing so that you won't fall victim, because they're so clever, and they're on progressive websites in the comment sections. They're on Facebook. They're everywhere. First of all, here's their main talking points, and you'll notice that Donald Trump has already said all these things. America and NATO have done bad things too. Oh, that's fake news. There was no hospital bombed, or those were crisis actors. Those weren't real dead mothers and children. Or those are false flags. flag set up by the United States and the CIA. Or Biden and the Dems are really bad, but notice I never say anything bad about Trump and the Republicans. Oh, I will mix some progressive things in with my lies. Also notice my talking points are exactly the same as Kremlin, Trump, Tucker Carlson, Jimmy Dore, and now Tulsi Gabbard. Or, who cares about the Ukrainians? And by the way, both parties are no good, so just vote third party, don't help the Democrats. Does that about sum up the troll talking points, Tom?
It does, and we saw this in 2015 and 2016 too. The main points that were being made are the main point that was made in most cases that Mueller identified in the Mueller report was both parties are the same, don't bother voting. And you're absolutely right, Steve. And with regard to the comments on progressive websites, I've watched for a couple of years, particularly over on Common Dreams. You don't see it so much on some of the other sites like Daily Kos and Democratic Underground that have, I think, a better barrier, you know, another level of protection against trolls. But some of these sites are just filled with what I've always assumed were Russian trolls. You know. Well,
I can tell you one thing, and thank you for letting me make a second point about this. And I really love that you do that that you give your callers a chance to speak at length sometimes. But these trolls it's a career for them. Yep. They create a persona. For example, at Common Dreams, you can track people who've invested 4 years of pretending to be a progressive at Common Dreams. But whenever they have the chance on the appropriate article, they slip in the Biden and Democrats are all bad, and I won't mention the Republicans and what they do wrong, and they shill for Putin. But in the same comment thread, they also sound like a progressive. These people are well-trained, they're multilingual, and, you know, Putin, he's well-trained and multilingual, too.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And again,
thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve. I refer you to the Mueller report. They ended up indicting 14, as I recall, Russian intelligence officers, specifically because of these operations. Rachel in Bloomington, Minnesota. Hey, Rachel. Thanks for listening to KTNF. What's up?
Hey, I feel like as Americans, the biggest way we can speak, in addition to voting, is with our pocketbook. And so I would really like to hear more about specifically which companies are supporting some of the bad guys out there. So, like, for years, I've been boycotting Southern Pacific, which is Koch brothers. And now that I hear that, like, Nestle will not pull out of Russia, and Nestle's done some other bad stuff, I'm going to boycott Nestle. And I'd love to hear, like, which companies are using the Uyghurs as a workforce. So it would just be really helpful to me, and I think other listeners, to hear about who these people are, because if we stop buying their stuff, I think it's the only way they're going to listen.
You know what surprises me, Rachel, is that there's not a central clearinghouse for this kind of information. It seems like the sort of thing that somebody would build a website around, although maybe they're concerned about lawsuits or something.
The only thing I know of is if you're against animal testing, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals has a website.
Yeah.
And so they're good for, at least, like, you can choose some of those companies for other things that you want to buy.
Right.
But yeah, I agree with you. It took me a while to figure out what Southern Pacific was.
Right, and which is the other problem, is that Koch Industries and Nestle and some of these other companies that are arguing that they should stay in Russia, you have no idea. I mean, L'Oreal, for example, I saw a thing on Twitter this morning that L'Oreal is owned by Nestle. I'm taking it at face value. I believe it probably is true. And I had no idea. I mean, you know, I think most people don't.
They're also one of the biggest animal testers, which is odd.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
do you know about the Uyghurs? Who's using their work?
I don't. I would assume probably a lot of it is textiles, you know, clothing. But I just, but you know, a lot of stuff is manufactured in China, and I don't know how much of it is happening in, is that Shenzhen? I forget the name of the province, but that's
all I think of when I see, like, $10 T-shirts that are from China. I'm like, this has got to be Uyghurs.
Yeah, well, it could be,
you know?
or it could be that, you know, in some cases China is even outsourcing the manufacture of those things to other countries. I mean, to Vietnam or to Cambodia, and then, you know, they're importing the products of cheap labor now because their middle class has been starting to demand pay raises. Chinese labor is not as cheap as it used to be, although, you know, Uyghur labor, I'm sure, is very cheap. Rachel, thank you for the call, and thanks for the heads up on that. If anybody knows of any websites that do a good job of analyzing, which companies are doing what, let me know. Give us a call, 202-808-9925, and I'll put you on the air. We'll be right back. I want to get into the Republicans. Oh, it's Trump's team. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann program. They are HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit delivery service. More info at HelloFresh.com, code TOM. The hidden history of Big Brother in America, how the death of privacy and the rise of surveillance threaten us and our democracy, by Thom Hartmann. More information at all book outlets. Wild Alaskan Company, 100% sustainable wild-caught seafood delivered right to your door. More info at wildalaskancompany.com/Tom. Cozy Earth, better sleep, better you. More info at cozyearth.com, promo code TOM. The latest views and opinions from U.S. politics and other fascinating subjects too, including cutting-edge science reports at HartmannReport.com. And Dinovite, a whole food supplement for your pet's immune system. More info at Dinovite.com.
It is, I promise, the last week of the Free Speech TV fundraiser. This last week is, things have been going kind of slow. We've talked about this before. I realize there's enormous competition for nonprofit dollars out there. Free Speech TV has not hit their goals. In fact, they're in the neighborhood of 25% short of their goals, and thus one more last week, one for this fourth week. It's tough, but hey, we've got to pay the bills. We've got to make sure that the organization continues on a sound footing, that the electrons continue to bounce off the satellites and come to you. So, step by step. And for this end of drive, the end of the pledge drive, there's actually a challenge pledge that Sandy, frontline funder Sandy in New Mexico, has made. Sandy says, well, this is what the note says. In memory of his late partner, Storm Diana Townsend, frontline funder Sandy in New Mexico is inviting you to make a new donation to help us reach our final goal and unlock an extra $10,000. This is the note from the good folks at Free Speech TV. Sandy describes Storm as a pro-union socialist, but her true passion was for indigenous communities. Storm worked with Navajo artists throughout her career as a sculptor. This week, let's honor Storm and all of our community members, past and present, who continue to make this kind of storytelling possible, like on, this network. Every new gift made before Friday will go toward unlocking that $10,000 challenge. So if we can hit, if you and I and the other programs here on this network, if we can hit this $10,000 goal, then we will unlock another $10,000. If we can hit our goal for this. For the end of this pledge drive, we can unlock another $10,000 that will go to, helping make Free Speech TV whole, helping fill the budget hole that they're facing right now. So big challenge, lot to do. Last opportunity this week, these next 5 days, today and the next 4 days, to participate in Free Speech TV, to really and truly step up and say, yes, I'm going to be part of this thing. There are a bunch of premiums that Free Speech TV is offering. They're pretty much the same as we've been talking about all week, but I'll run through them real quickly for you. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV Clear sticker, like a Kling window sticker, or a Free Speech TV bumper sticker. Or with a $20 gift, the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV Seed Bomb. Celebrate Earth Day every day. This is a really cool seed bomb. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hat or the Free Speech TV mug. With a $100 gift, Free Speech TV will plant a tree. With a $120 gift, it's the one and only way to get your very own autographed copy of the hidden history of Big Brother in America, and my book on privacy and what's going on and how bad it could get and where we're going and all that kind of thing. Or you can have the Free Speech TV Solidarity T-shirt with that $120 gift. With a $240 gift, you have two choices. One is the Free Speech TV meet and greet, the virtual meet and greet that we do on Zoom, and the other is the Free Speech TV banned book box. And this is particularly cool. And by the way, you can also make a commitment of $20 a month for a year to get the banned book box. So we're still trying, as I mentioned, last Friday, we're still trying to build this foundation of regular monthly contributors, small $5, $10, $20 monthly contributors to support this network. This is how structures always work. You've got to build the foundation first, and this is the foundation for us. And the banned book box includes The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, a brilliant novel, Mouse by Art Spiegelman, which is the illustrated story that for reasons that I still can't understand, that Republicans want to ban from our public schools. It's a story about what life was like under the Nazis in Germany in the 1930s. And the third book that you get with this $240 gift is Beyond Magenta, Transgender Teens Speak Out by Susan Cooklin. And so, three marvelous books that Republicans don't want you to read. Literally. I mean, these are all books that have been banned in various states. So that's with a $240 gift. And of course, with a $1,000 gift, come here to Portland and we can hang out together. I'll take you to lunch. You can spend an hour in the studio, watch the last hour of our program, and then we'll walk down the street to a restaurant and have a nice lunch together. And this is all assuming that kind of COVID has passed, right? Or they come up with a super shot or something like that. I think we're going to get there. I really do. I realize that there's probably one more wave right now coming from this Omicron D2 variant, but I think we're going to get there. So your $1,000 gifts are appreciated now, even if we can't host you right at this moment. The bottom line, though, is we need to unlock that $10,000 matching pledge, and we also need to hit our goals. It's just that simple. We got to pay the bills, and if we want to keep this network on the air. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution to Free Speech TV, or reaffirm your contribution if you've made contributions in the past and you'd like to add a little bit to it. This is the time. Please call now. Thank you. Do it.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Okay, now it's becoming clear that Donald Trump's team not only, organized and helped organize the whole rally thing in the Capitol on January 6th of 2021, but they also were actually planning for all those people to go down to the Capitol and raise hell. They wanted to have a march to the Capitol. They wanted to intimidate Congress. And Rolling Stone has a lengthy article about this today, and it's really worth reading. And in this article, Scott Johnson explains that the goal was to make it look like they went down there on their own, was the phrase that Scott Johnson uses. To make it look like the march from the Trump rally to the Capitol, and then the invasion of the Capitol, and then trying to stop the vote, and killing Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi, that was all spontaneous. And Trump kind of got ahead of his skis in this when he actually said, let's go down to, I'm going to march with you. We're going to go down there. But Johnston says that he overheard Mark Meadows. Now, Mark Meadows, by the way, is denying this. And in his book, Mark Meadows minimized this. He said that in his book, it was just, quote, the actions of a handful of fanatics across town, end quote, which is an obvious lie. But hey, Mark Meadows lying? You know, he was a Republican. He was a member of the Freedom Caucus. He was, Donald Trump picked him to be his chief of staff. Of course he lies. But anyhow, Mark Meadows was having a conversation, according to Johnston, who was there, with Katrina Pearson, Trump's national campaign spokesperson, talking with Kylie Creamer, the executive director of Women for America First, about plans to march to the Capitol. This is from the Rolling Stone. Johnston said the conversation was clearly audible to him since it took place on a speakerphone as he drove Creamer between the group's rallies in the final 3 days of 2020. He says, quote, they were very open about how there was going to be a march. Everyone knew there was going to be a march. Right. They even talked about getting a permit for a march in these phone call conversations that he overheard. This was Meadows, Pearson, and Creamer. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. Kremer. I think maybe it's Creamer. But they talked about it. They decided against it, he said. He tells us in this Rolling Stone piece, because the security costs would be high. See, when you get a permit for a march in Washington, D.C., you have to pay for the security. And they didn't want to pay. And Trump certainly wasn't going to pay out of pocket. He never pays for anything. So, Trump is swearing that this thing was not pre-planned, the March on the Capitol. Meadows wrote in his book it wasn't pre-planned. But Representative Mo Brooks, who gave a speech at the rally that preceded it, revealed that there was going to be so much violence that he was going to wear body armor, which he did. Mo Brooks, member of Congress, Republican from Alabama, showed up to give a speech wearing armor plating under his coat, wearing a bulletproof vest. Now, and at that, he was standing behind bulletproof glass. You'll recall Trump didn't wear a bulletproof vest because he was standing behind inch-thick bulletproof glass, which is something you almost never see in these kinds of rallies and speeches. These guys were not only planning violence, they were hoping for violence, in my humble opinion. Johnston also revealed that the rally organizers were constantly using burner phones. Johnston told Rolling Stone, I know because I'm the one who bought the burner phones. So he's running down to Radio Shack or whatever, picking up burner phones for the Trump people, which raises a question. Why are they using burner phones? I think it's fairly clear. They were conducting an illegal activity. Now the question, as that person from Finland was pointing out over on Talking Points Memo, the whole world is watching. You had an attempted coup in the United States. Are you going to hold these guys accountable or not? The other story I wanted to share with you this hour, which I think is just extraordinary, and then I'll pick up your phone calls, is this piece. There's a summary of it on commondreams.org titled, Putin Aggression Leads to Surge in Electrical Vehicle Progress in Europe. And Sean Goulding Carroll at Euractiv.com actually points out, he asked if Europe could do something to defund the war, right, to defund this effort that Putin is conducting right now. And one of the main things, it turns out, might be replacing internal combustion engines, gasoline and diesel-powered engines, with electric cars. Now, the European Union has already ratified a plan that would ban the sale of anything except electric cars after 2035. But that's 13 years down the road. So the question is, can they move up that deadline? And there's a discussion about this in Europe right now. Slightly over a quarter of all the petroleum consumed in the European Union comes from Russia. And that money is funding the Russian war machine. So the European Parliament just literally, quite recently, in the last month or so, just resolved a debate, shall we say, within the EU about how extensively they want to create a framework to recycle batteries so that they don't have to depend on foreign countries for things like lithium and chromium and cobalt, nickel, copper, and to what extent they're going to subsidize that. And so they just put this together. The EU batteries made in the EU are going to be the greenest in the world and the most recyclable, with plans to recover some 90% of the nickel, copper, and cobalt used in them and 70% of the lithium. Russia, by the way, is one of the world's major lithium producers and exporters to Europe. So where is this going? Well, Ford is planning 3 new electric passenger vehicles for consumers in Europe within the next 2 years. And new lines are going to be built in both Germany and Romania. In France, the high price of gasoline is causing consumers to start buying more electric vehicles. There was kind of an anecdotal story over at France Info. One man at a dealership tried driving an EV for the first time, and then he calculated his fuel costs and saw it would drop from $440 for his average monthly driving of around 1,400 miles. It would drop from $440 down to $60. Electricity is a lot cheaper, particularly in Europe, than gasoline, but also here in the United States. Louise and I paid pretty much nothing to drive our car all around. We went for a nice long drive yesterday. Went out and visited one of our kids and our grandkids. Now, in France, Macron who is campaigning for re-election, by the way, which may have something to do with why he keeps trying to insert himself into the situation with Russia. He recently added a new plank to his platform, his re-election platform, and that is a lease-to-own program that the government will run to make it easier for middle-class consumers to buy electric cars. That's kind of a cool thing. And Tesla has sold, they have sold 309,000 cars in the fourth quarter of last year alone, over 300,000 cars in the European Union. That's a 71% increase over the previous year. In December, 29% of new car registrations across Europe were plug-in, either all-electric or plug-in hybrids like the one I have. And but in the United States last year, only 9% of new car purchases were electric vehicles or PHEVs, the plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. And I think we need to fix this. We need to fix this. If you want to solve the crisis in Ukraine, if you want to diminish the power of Russia's Vladimir Putin, go electric. Now, I realize not everybody in America can do that. So let's start something like Macron is proposing in France, a lease-to-own program for electric vehicles, or more subsidies for electric vehicles so that we can make this transition. We have to get this country off its fossil fuel addiction. It is destroying our planet as well as weakening the international order.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It's 15 minutes past the hour. I'll pick up your calls on the other side of this break. By the way, ethicalconsumer.org has a list of boycotts. ethicalconsumer.org. And welcome back. Let's see here. Oops. Dave in Federal Way, Washington. Hey, Dave, what's on your mind today?
Hey, not too much, Tom. Yeah, you made an important point when you talked about getting ahead of your skis, because that's really hard to say how that's going to play out. And
what are we talking about here?
Yeah, the fate of democracy and what's going on in the Ukraine, basically.
Right.
Vladimir Putin gave a speech where he mentioned, the fifth column in Russia. And he talked about, they're basically elitist on Miami Beach eating oysters and foie gras. I had to look up foie gras. I didn't even know what that is.
Yeah, it's goose liver.
Yeah, fattened, sort of like veal. We don't even really generally get it in the United States because of animal cruelty thing. But the point is okay, let me connect this to Josh Hawley, okay? I heard a Republican saying Josh Hawley is just an upstart. He represents a small fringe of the Republican Party, and he's going to question Judge Jackson about some crazy QAnon stuff like the international pedophile ring and stuff like this. But basically, this all links back to her, representing one of the Guantanamo Bay, somebody that was in Guantanamo Bay. And let me tell you something. With these Trumpers and this QAnon, I mean, we can dismiss it, right? We can dismiss it. But it's actually very powerful. And it goes back to Vladimir Putin. What Vladimir Putin and Josh Hawley and a bunch of them are saying is liberals like Thom Hartmann are just out of touch. They're eating foie gras. They're whatever. They're talking about, you know, the North Pole having, you know, a temperature variance and everything. And they're not really practical. And this is eventually what I'm afraid of is like even if they don't get ahead of their skis and if they're patient, even Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, in his hour of desperation, he's actually saying some pretty dangerous things. Like, for instance, you know, he's talking about this could lead to World War III, and if the international community doesn't act. Right. And the thing is that gives Russia an impetus, right? It gives them, like, if something does happen, they can say, look, we're not trying to oppress anybody. We're just trying to, salvage a bad situation. And actually, I think China's getting in on it, too, because China's talking about NATO, the Indo-Pacific realignment basically is a NATO expansion into, their affairs, their international affairs. Right. And this whole thing is really, it's really precarious. And I guess my main point is we need to understand that, in the 21st century, people are generally united in their opposition to blowing up the houses of non-combatants. Yeah. As a form of legitimate warfare. Right. And that's real. That's real. That's something we all need to stay behind. I hear liberals do it too. They say America, they're still falling for what we did. They're saying America's military is nothing but America's military is just a charity organization. We're just going around when in fact we don't build all these bombs and bullets and stuff to, Yeah,
they're not for charity. Basically. They're absolutely not for charity. One of these days, Dave, I want to ask you if you think that Putin is bluffing about World War III. There's a fascinating debate going on the internet about this. Should we even seriously worry about that? Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. It's coming up on 20 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Cody in New York City. Hey, Cody, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Thank you so much for your opening rant today. You put your finger on the most important issue facing America today, and that is the oligarchy is in the process of overthrowing democracy in America. Yep. And my take on it is the reason this is happening, or part of the reason, is because the people in the nation don't know about it. They are not aware that this is happening. Yeah. And the reason is because there is a complete blackout in the mainstream media of any criticism of the wealthy. Right? This is a huge problem. And part of it is because of the consolidation of control of the wealthy, and all these media outlets are owned and controlled by the oligarchs themselves. Yep. So we never hear about it in the media. Yep. Now this stands in complete contrast to the last time we faced this problem, which was the Gilded Age. Right? The same thing happened in the Gilded Age. The oligarchs were trying to overthrow democracy. Right. But back in the Gilded Age, it was in the media. This issue was in the media. You had politicians like Teddy Roosevelt, TR, right? He was a trust buster. Mm-hmm. He was on the front pages of the media, railing against the wealthy. FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, same thing. You had the governor of New York, Al Smith, same thing. He was an extremely popular governor, and he ran against the wealthy interests. So when people know about this issue, they will vote against the oligarchs and in favor of democracy. But today, with the media controlled by the oligarchs, we are in deep trouble, my friend. Yeah, I cannot disagree with you. And FDR's, he called them out. He called them economic royalists. These economic royalists seek to, and he went on, about how they seek to actually tear down democracy.
but he was not going to be there. He was not going to tolerate it. Cody, spot on. Thank you very much for the call. Richard in Bellevue, Washington. Hey, Richard, what's up?
Hello, Tom. Thank you for another enlightening and sometimes fearful show. Appreciate that. I wanted to just bring up a topic with a corollary that the sanctions against the Russian oligarchs may still not have gone far enough, with a glaring, obvious example in our midst of Russian money going through what I'd call the Trump laundromat. And I'd like to suggest that maybe we should be looking at seizing Trump properties as just an extension of our our actions against these oligarchs.
Yeah,
he may not be Russian in his upbringing, but he's certainly Russian in spirit. And then so right along with that, then what we ought to do is erect a huge wall around his property down there and rename it Gulagalago.
Yeah, I agree with you, Richard, that Donald Trump is a wholly owned subsidiary of Putin's Russia. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, I think that's been the case since the late 90s when he had his last bankruptcy and he just became, more and more desperate for money. And I think the money came in from Russia's oligarchs, and not just Russia's oligarchs, but they were sufficiently prominent that that's what we ended up with. And we'll see where the January 6th committee's investigations go, but I have a feeling they're going to go there. Thank you very much for the call, Richard. Joel in Asheville, North Carolina. Hey, Joel, what's on your mind today?
Well, I'm calling today. Can you hear me?
I can, yes, sir.
Okay, good. Well, I'm the son of a woman that was assaulted outside of a Trump rally in 2016 in Asheville, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And we have, our family has fought against Project Veritas, and we ultimately lost, I guess you would say. But inside that case is evidence of coordination with the Trump campaign. And I just briefly want to kind of give you a little overview. The local lawyer that represented the man that assaulted my mom coordinated with Breitbart. I can give you specific names. It's all in depositions. I could probably get in a little bit of trouble for talking about this, but
well, let's keep it more general then, Joel.
Okay. Well, specifically, I'm calling because of Citizens United is a direct correlate to my mom getting hurt on the streets of America. Basically, when they opened up the kind of communications that they did when they opened up the Citizens United Pandora, basically they, as we know, as you know, not all Americans know this, but basically we're dealing with psychological warfare. And Steve Bannon and Andrew Breitbart and Trump are so connected, and they don't talk about it. It's so connected from 2011, 2012, when Breitbart reached out to Trump, and they groomed him. They absolutely groomed him to become president. Not that they knew that he would become, but they actually put a lot of interest behind him by getting guys from Breitbart to write his policy books.
Yeah, they figured he would be their useful idiot.
Exactly. And I just know that what's inside this case dealing with Shirley Teeter is so important to the discussion and for the future of our democracy. But I'm having a hard time finding people that want to get into it. And I think mostly because of the litigiousness of the Project Veritas people.
Yeah.
And that's their mission. Their mission is to actually take down media through litigation. However, recently there was a small victory. Washington Post, I believe, won in a recent defamation. They dismissed Project Veritas' claim.
I get very concerned, I guess would be the right word. Even with people that I strongly disagree with, like Project Veritas, when who represent themselves as the press, when courts start going after them. Now, if people are telling lies, for fun and profit, then that's one thing. But
well, let me make one more point. There's another case coming up later this year dealing with democracy partners.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, are they spies or are they the press? And if they're the spies and they do coordinate with the far-right Republicans, then they're not the press. They're something very dangerous.
Yeah, well, again, I mean, we have to be very, very careful in these kind of cases, Joel. The media is the fourth estate. I mean, the media is right at the core of any functioning democracy. Joel, thanks for the call. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Back with your calls after this break. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, defending America from the weapons of mass deception. It is, I promise, the last week of the Free Speech TV fundraiser. This last week is, things have been going kind of slow. We've talked about this before. I realize there's enormous competition for nonprofit dollars out there. Free Speech TV has not hit their goals. In fact, they're in the neighborhood of 25% short of their goals, and thus one more last week, one for this fourth week. It's tough, but hey, we've got to pay the bills. We've got to make sure that the organization continues on a sound footing, that the electrons continue to bounce off the satellites and come to you. So, step by step. And for this end of drive, the end of the pledge drive, there's actually a challenge pledge that Sandy, frontline funder Sandy in New Mexico, has made. Sandy says, well, this is what the note says. In memory of his late partner, Storm Diana Townsend, frontline funder Sandy in New Mexico is inviting you to make a new donation to help us reach our final goal and unlock an extra $10,000. This is the note from the good folks at Free Speech TV. Sandy describes Storm as a pro-union socialist, but her true passion was for indigenous communities. Storm worked with Navajo artists throughout her career as a sculptor. This week, let's honor Storm and all of our community members, past and present, who continue to make this kind of storytelling possible, like on, this network. Every new gift made before Friday will go toward unlocking that $10,000 challenge. So if we can hit, if you and I and the other programs here on this network, if we can hit this $10,000 goal, then we will unlock another $10,000. If we can hit our goal for this. For the end of this pledge drive, we can unlock another $10,000 that will go to helping make Free Speech TV whole, helping fill the budget hole that they are facing right now. So big challenge, lot to do. Last opportunity this week, these next 5 days, today and the next 4 days, to participate in Free Speech TV, to really and truly step up and say, yes, I'm going to be part of this thing. There are a bunch of premiums that Free Speech TV is offering. They're pretty much the same as we've been talking about all week, but I'll run through them real quickly for you. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV clear sticker, like a cling window sticker, or a Free Speech TV bumper sticker. Or with a $20 gift, the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV Seed Bomb. Celebrate Earth Day every day. This is a really cool seed bomb. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV hat or the Free Speech TV mug. With a $100 gift, Free Speech TV will plant a tree. With a $120 gift, it's the one and only way to get your very own autographed copy of the hidden history of Big Brother in America. And my book on privacy and what's going on and how bad it could get and where we're going and all that kind of thing. Or you can have the Free Speech TV Solidarity t-shirt with that $120 gift. With a $240 gift, you have two choices. One is the Free Speech TV meet and greet, the virtual meet and greet that we do on Zoom, and the other is the Free Speech TV banned book box. And this is particularly cool. And by the way, you can also make a commitment of $20 a month for a year to get the banned book box. So we're still trying, as I mentioned, last Friday, we're still trying to build this foundation of regular monthly contributors, small $5, $10, $20 monthly contributors to support this network. This is how, structures always work. You've got to build the foundation first, and this is the foundation for us. And the banned book box includes The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, a brilliant novel, Mouse by Art Spiegelman, which is the illustrated story that for reasons that I still can't understand, that Republicans want to ban from our public schools. It's a story about what life was like under the Nazis in Germany in the 1930s. And the third book that you get with this $240 gift is Beyond Magenta, Transgender Teens Speak Out by Susan Cooklin. And so, three marvelous books that Republicans don't want you to read. Literally. I mean, these are all books that have been banned in various states. So that's with a $240 gift. And of course, with a $1,000 gift, come here to Portland and we can hang out together. I'll take you to lunch. You can spend an hour in the studio, watch the last hour of our program, and then we'll walk down the street to a restaurant and have a nice lunch together. And this is all assuming that kind of COVID has passed, right? Or they come up with a super shot or something like that. I think we're going to get there. I really do. I realize that there's probably one more wave right now coming from this Omicron D2 variant, but I think we're going to get there. So your $1,000 gifts are appreciated now, even if we can't host you right at this moment. The bottom line, though, is we need to unlock that $10,000 matching pledge, and we also need to hit our goals. It's just that simple. We got to pay the bills, and if we want to keep this network on the air. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution to Free Speech TV, or reaffirm your contribution if you've made contributions in the past and you'd like to add a little bit to it. This is the time. Please call now. Thank you. Do it. Our 1 hour free podcast recaps our show, and it's available wherever fine podcasts are found. And we have the full 3 hour podcast available over at thomhartmann.com if you want to really support our program. So did you hear the story about the three white guys, 20, 22, 24 years old, who just pleaded guilty to trying to attack power grids in 3 different parts of the United States? According to the Justice Department, their scheme was that they were going to bring down electricity for 3 basically major cities or major regions of the United States. And the theory of this program is sort of like what Tim McVeigh was all about back in 1990, I think it was 3, when he blew up the federal building. Their scheme was that doing so, cutting off the power to these cities. Well, this is from the Department of Justice. Quote, the defendants believed their plan would cost the government millions of dollars and cause unrest for Americans in the region. They had conversations about how the possibility of power being out for months would cause a race war and induce the next Great Depression. They had suicide pills and everything. Why aren't we talking about white terrorism in America? There's a video about this over at thomhartmann.com. Check it out. Welcome back. 35 minutes past the hour. Oh, one other story I want to share with you real quickly, and then I'll pick up your phone calls, I promise. This is, according to the International Business Times, Anonymous is really going to town here, and about what Putin's up to in Ukraine and all this sort of thing. This is a report from the International Business Times by Nika Osario, who is quoting spokespeople, I suppose, quoting Anonymous, that they've created a workaround on the web to get information to Russians. Now, Russia has blocked Facebook, they've blocked Twitter, they're blocking news about what's actually going on in Ukraine all over the place. And there's a few sites that are still being used, but they're just blocking this stuff. And so what they're doing is, a lot of people have their printers online. All right, their printers are on their Wi-Fi network, and in other words, instead of plugging your printer into your computer, you communicate between your computer and your printer with Wi-Fi. Well, that puts your printer on the Wi-Fi network, which puts your printer literally on the internet. And so a slick hacker can get to your printer. And that's what these folks are doing. They're finding unsecured printers all across Russia, and they've designed a nice little one-page PDF, or maybe it's a two-page PDF that summarizes what Russia is doing in Ukraine, tells the truth about it. And they're just basically, people in homes and businesses all across Russia, all of a sudden their printer fires up and out comes this page. It's like, whoa, where'd this come from? Well, it came from Anonymous. This is what they said, quote, we hacked printers all across Russia and printed this PDF explaining that Putin, Kremlin, Russian media is lying, and then we instructed them how to install Tor to get around their censorship to access real media. They also underlined that it was Putin who started the war over borders and fear of the West, not over Ukraine. The last paragraph noted, quote, a wad of paper and ink is a cheap price for the blood of the innocent. It also encourages Russians to fight for their heritage and honor, overthrowing Putin's corrupt system that steals from your pocket. They also said that they've got a big data dump coming of Russian data that's going to blow the minds of Russians. So we'll see. We'll see how this all plays out and where it all goes. Dave in Yardley, Pennsylvania. Hey, Dave, what's on your mind today?
Thank you, Tom. With Putin, he said that he would probably start World War III if we supplied jets and things like that over in the war. Now, so what he did, he put us on the hot seat, because if we did, either way we lose, the way it looks like. But why don't we turn around and say to him, okay, we won't supply jets or anything like that, but if you bomb a community, civilian, school, hospital, then we're going to bring in our forces to protect us.
Yeah. John Aravosis really brought this up in he's got a Substack newsletter that's called Cyber Disobedience, and Cyber Disobedience, on Substack. And basically what he points, he says, it's time we ought to talk about World War III. And he points out that Putin has been saber-rattling, hey, I've got nukes, you have to let me do what I want. And he's threatening World War III. And the question then becomes, okay, if we're going to let him have Ukraine because he's got nukes, why would we not let him also have Poland? Well, Poland is part of NATO, so he still has nukes. If you don't want to have World War III, you're going to have to take this guy on. And at what point do you do that? And Aravosis makes actually, I think, a fairly strong case. I'm not ready to go there yet because I'm frankly very concerned about the prospect of World War III, particularly in nuclear World War III. But basically what he's saying is we should call Putin's bluff, that Putin is not willing to start World War III. Particularly in Europe, because all the radiation would blow back on Russia, among other reasons, and that it's going to be a conventional war and probably a cyber war, and or at the very worst he might use some battlefield nukes, which are terrible weapons, but they're not. It's not like going to end the world, and that it's time for us to say enough already. We're tired of being blackmailed. Nuclear blackmailed, and we're not going to take it anymore. This is, this is arguably what John Kennedy said in '62 with the Cuban Missile Crisis. And in fact, I just pulled his newsletter up, and he says, call the bluff. Now, why do I call the bluff? He says, because since the Soviet Union developed nuclear weapons 73 years ago, they've never once used them, even when they had ample opportunity. And, he said, why didn't they use them when the Mujahideen kicked their butts in Afghanistan? Why didn't they use them when Reagan repeatedly challenged them, rather aggressively? Why are things any different today? And then he says, let's assume things are different, that Putin lost his mind or something like that. That means under no circumstances would NATO ever take Russia on militarily in the future, including with regard to NATO. A NATO country, lest Moscow nuke the world. And is that really the message we want to be sending? And he points out that Biden has repeated this over and over and over again. Oh, we don't want to send our troops in there, and we don't want to send our planes in there because that would mean World War III. And basically what he's arguing is that Biden is doing Putin's work by saying this. Now, like I said, I don't completely agree with this, but I think that it would make a fascinating conversation. I would love to know more about what's going on in Washington, D.C., what's going on inside the Biden administration, how people are thinking about this. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Dave?
Well, I agree with you, on most of them points. The only thing that I can see, though, is a lot of civilians are getting killed, and we could stop that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that there has to be a point. And I think, frankly, we passed that point more than a week ago in Ukraine, arguably in the first week of the invasion. There has to be a point where the rest of the world says, no, you just can't do that. You can't just kill civilians in order to steal property, in order to steal land. You can't do it. It's not acceptable any longer. And everybody's talking about, well, let's hold him accountable with a war crimes trial and all this. I would go farther than that. I would absolutely go farther than that. Dave?
I really believe that when this ends, some of his people will probably take him out.
That's probably the most desirable outcome, although be careful what you wish for, because the guy who replaces him might be crazier than him. Putin at least, wants to stay alive and stay in power. But on the other hand, apparently from the news reports, Putin is terrified of a color revolution, basically of people of Russia, rising up and saying no. And that I think would probably be the most desirable outcome. Dave, thanks for the call. Rob in Rochester, New York. Hey, Rob, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, Tom, how you doing?
Good. What's up?
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on what you were talking about earlier about, how there was foresight into the march from the rally to the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
You recall the stage at the rally says march to the Capitol or march on the Capitol?
It does?
And yeah, the stage does. If you look at the rally, a big banner above the stage says march to the Capitol. And so they printed those out right ahead of time. That was this foresight. And I think that it also was intended that they didn't get the permit, not because they couldn't afford it, because that would just give a tell to the security. There would be more security along the route.
Right.
There would be more security at the Capitol itself. They didn't want that. That was all by design. I think when they get into this, they're going to find a lot more stuff. I think that this is just a lot of stuff was going on in the Oval Office and at the Willard Hotel, and it's. Hopefully we'll get to the bottom of this.
I think you're right, Bob, or Rob, excuse me. I think we're looking at treason here, or sedition, and certainly seditious conspiracy. And I hope these guys are held accountable. Rob, thanks a lot for the call. It's 44 minutes, coming up on 45 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. Helping you win the water cooler wars, Thom Hartmann.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
A plane, by the way, went down in China. Looks like 135 people on board dead, a 737-800. Not a good thing. We'll be right back. So we've had a number of people call in over the last a few months and essentially complain about, I don't mean this in a negative way, about how hard it is to get in and call into this program. So I just thought I'd flag for you that there are a couple of lines that are open right now. If you've tried to get in and you want to comment on the issues of the day, feel free. Gary in Alpharetta, Georgia, 202-808-9925 is the number. Gary in Alpharetta, Georgia. Hey, Gary, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Hello. Happy first day of spring.
Thank you. Back at you. First weekday of spring.
Okay, I think
yesterday was the first day.
I'll take it. Believe me. It is beautiful down here in Georgia today. Something must need to be said, if you don't mind. It's Ben Franklin, it's a republic if you can keep it. I'm getting more. You didn't think I could get more concerned than I am today again. We are not obviously informed enough in America. I don't know if it's because, and then you can tell me what you think. If you think we don't want to be, or we feel just putting our arms, there's nothing we can do about it. To be strong abroad, we have to be strong at home. And right now, we're not strong enough at home, and presenting ourselves to the world stage as a strong people with a common objective.
Yeah.
To end these wars, and it's going to come down to us. We can talk all we want. We're going to decide the future fate of ourselves. And as far as nuclear war goes, if you don't mind me saying about that, the nuclear thing,
please.
It's always a possible reality.
Yeah.
I hate to say it. Yeah. To me, it's always a possible. But I'm getting very concerned. We don't want to be informed. I'll just shut up and let you talk about what I just mentioned.
I get what you're saying, Gary, and you know, I'm not sure that it's that Americans don't want to be informed. I think, you know, people want to know what's going on. They want to have some sense of it. They want to have some sense of agency with regard to it. I think it's more that you know, in most other countries, most other developed countries in the world, your average citizen doesn't worry a lot. I mean, you know, because they know that if somebody in their family gets sick, the system will take care of them. If their kids reach college age, the system will take care of them. The education they're going to get is going to be solid. The jobs are going to be available. The infrastructure of the country is going to be taken care of. But here in the United States, probably more than half of all Americans go to bed every night worried that if somebody gets sick or if their car breaks down, they're screwed. I mean, in a big way.
Right.
Like, you know, they lose their jobs, they lose their homes, they end up homeless. And that causes people to not pay so much attention to what's going on in Washington, D.C., even though, you know, it's 40 years of neoliberalism and Reaganism that brought this to them. That's like way above their ability to understand it. Not because they're dumb, but because, you know, the lack of information, lack of data, lack of detail, and lack of coverage of these topics by corporate media. And so I don't think it's that people don't want to know. I think it's just that they're wiped out. They're busy. They're concerned. They're worried.
All right, Thom Hartmann, thank you so much.
Okay, good talking to you, Gary. Thank you very much for the call.
Bye-bye.
Greed has no heart.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yep. We'll see you later. It is coming up on 10 minutes before the hour. Back with your calls right after this. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Welcome back. 49 minutes past the hour. Danita in Bremerton, Washington. Hey, Danita, what's on your mind today?
Oh, hi, Tom. Thank you for taking my call. Just a quickie, hopefully. You had mentioned on your show last week about some divisions, subsidiaries of the Coke industry that aren't refusing to stop doing business in Russia. With the stocks going down, my husband and I were fortunate enough to throw in to buy a couple of shares of Costco. And Costco, in their public bathrooms, always use Georgia Pacific products. So in a suggestion to Costco, and I stated about the Russian divisions and asked politely if they would discontinue their use of Georgia Pacific products. And so hopefully that'll work.
Yeah.
But they're making a lot of money off us.
Yeah.
And thank you for what you do.
Sure. Thank you, Danita. I was, as we were talking, I was looking for the list. Bob Bidgood, I think, over on Twitter, tweeted to me, ethicalconsumer.org /ethicalcampaigns/boycotts. And this is a site, all the information and inspiration you need to revolutionize the way you spend, save, and live. But I plugged Coke, K-O-C-H, into their search engine. And they're apparently doing ethical ratings of 40,000 brands and products, but they're not. I don't see anything about Coke Industries on here. So.
Oh, okay. So they were talking about the industry.
Yeah.
Because you just mentioned on your show. So that's ethical. I'm sorry.
Ethicalconsumer.org.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you. Good talking to you. Margaret in East Chester, New York. Hey, Margaret, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
The call that just came in, I think, from David in Yardley, when he mentioned that it was very obvious that there was incitement going on at that Washington march on January 6th.
Right.
There was a jumbotron playing while those speakers were speaking, inciting the people, and showing them and having songs, marching songs. It was really very disturbing. And I saw it on television recently, and it was amazing to me because I had never heard one word about this in all the January 6th coverage.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I didn't know about that either, Margaret. I think that a lot of this is going to come out when they start doing the public hearings in Congress.
Well, I certainly hope so. And for me, I came across it accidentally. I'm usually listening to you guys, but I happened to have YouTube on one day. I guess you weren't in, and there it was. It was just shocking.
Yeah,
it was definitely incitement.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom, for everything every day. Bye.
Thank you, Margaret. Bill in Seattle. Hey, Bill. Thanks for listening to KBCS. What's up?
Hey, Tom. You saw a caller. You mentioned just a few moments ago about the insecurity of Americans worrying about getting sick, and that certainly is a huge concern. Has been one, but unfortunately, I think we're dropping down on what is it, Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to be hungry in this country, even worse than they are now. I mean, I think I've heard that 12% of the population faces food insecurity almost every day.
Yeah.
That was before these huge price hikes in basic foodstuffs.
Yep.
And I just think, I don't know about you, but from what I've seen, one of the, basic takeoff points for revolution and civil unrest is hunger. And I'm worried about it.
That's what that Tunisian street vendor who set himself on fire that tripped off the Arab Spring. What he was protesting was an increase in the price of wheat, and that was the result of climate change. And now the fourth or fifth largest wheat producing country in the world is Ukraine. I mean, people don't realize, I think, Ukraine is literally the largest country in Europe. It's larger than France. It's larger than Spain. The countries that you think of or Germany that you think of as big countries. It's the size of Texas, more or less. In fact, it's, I think, slightly larger than Texas. And they've got really, really good soil there. And they produce all this stuff. So, Bill, thanks for the heads up on that. Anna in Tustin, California, you've got a list of companies to boycott?
Yes. Hello, Tom. Good morning.
Hi.
Yes, I have a... Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. Yes, I did some research, and a gentleman named Alex Algard, who is a CEO for a software company based out of Seattle, created a website and a master list for tracking companies that are either in support of Ukraine by pulling out of Russia or who remain in Russia. So this is a useful list, and it's on the website, all one word, coalitionforukraine.com.
I just went there because I saw that you were going to be talking about it, and holy cow, what a list. 570 companies they've got.
It's comprehensive, and I wanted to make a note that, not just boycotting, but also to write a postcard or an email finding contact. If there's a business that you frequent that you might have boycotted, but then, like Starbucks or something, because when Starbucks was union busting, I went into my local Starbucks and I said, you won't be seeing me for a while, and et cetera. So not just sticks, but carrots. Call the companies that did the right thing, like, say, Coca-Cola or McDonald's that originally said they would stay and then they left. Call them or write them a note and say, thank you for pulling out. I'll continue to support you. So carrots and sticks.
There you go.
That's one idea that I had. And also, to a note about Nestle, they're a pretty evil company, and they use child labor for chocolate harvesting and processing.
And they've been promoting baby formula forever.
Yes, Nestle's pretty awful, so I try to avoid them as much as I can. And I think I've eliminated them from my household spending by 90%, everything. Also, too, if I can just, as a little small plug, because it's a tiny little company, but they do great things, and I don't benefit from this in any way. They're not sponsoring me or any way, but there's a chocolate company called Tony Chocolonely out of Holland, and 100% slave-free, fair trade, sustainably harvested, great chocolate, Tony Chocolonely.
Okay.
Check it out. If you're missing the Nestle chocolate, it's better tasting too.
Okay.
So anyway,
Anna, thanks.
Carrots and sticks for companies
There you
and slave-free chocolate.
And
okay,
thanks
you, Tom.
Thanks for the tip on coalitionforukraine.com. It's amazing. I'm hanging out here with some of the smartest people in the world. It is so much fun. It's such an honor to be with you today and every day. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires hard work from all of us and support from all of us. And there's lots of things that we can do. So get out there, get active, tag, you're it. Have a great afternoon. Be good to yourself and people around you. Stay safe. Pray for peace in the world.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann program. They are HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit delivery service. More info at HelloFresh.com, code TOM. The hidden history of Big Brother in America, how the death of privacy and the rise of surveillance threaten us and our democracy, by Thom Hartmann. More information at all book outlets. Wild Alaskan Company, 100% sustainable wild-caught seafood delivered right to your door. More info at wildalaskancompany.com/Tom. Cozy Earth, better sleep, better you. More info at cozyearth.com, promo code TOM. The latest views and opinions from U.S. politics and other fascinating subjects too, including cutting-edge science reports at hartmanreport.com. And Dinovite, a whole food supplement for your pet's immune system. More info at dinovite.com.
We say fight back!
Thank you.